Gu Shijie was very familiar with her own pill bottles. When she caught the bottle in midair, she already knew that this little bastard tricked her. If it were someone else, she would have slapped that person as hard as she could. However, this was Di Fui, so it would not have much effect. Furthermore, she could not beat him in her current state. She was now in a lot of pain but had taken all the medicines she needed to take, so she could not take any more. If she took more, it would have adverse side effects. Therefore, she decided to close her eyes and start to meditate. Di Fui did not dare to provoke her anymore. He sat opposite her and looked at her. He always felt that the scene was familiar, but he could not remember when he had experienced it before. He was a little bit fascinated by this thought. Through her meditation, Gu Shijie circulated the spiritual power in her body and managed to suppress the pain. She then extended her hand to him. "Give it to me." Her precious medicine was still in his hand. Since he did not appreciate it, she wanted it back. Who knows if he was going to throw it away again? Di Fui looked at the little hand that reached out to him and concealed his desire to hold it. "What? Return my medicine to me. Haven't you given it to me? Since you only want to eat unique supplements, I don't want to give this to you anymore." Di Fui's eyes flashed. He put the bottle in her palm and coughed lightly. "If you really want to give me this, you can refine it again." Gu Shijie collected the bottle and said coldly, "You can go and dream about it. The material to make this medicine is hard to find. This is the only one in this world." In the past few years, she had entered the Buddha Fire Land multiple times as she wanted to find the purple cloud mushroom again. She always came back home empty-handed. After that, the firmament stone told her that this purple cloud mushroom was extremely rare, and it might only appear once in 10,000 years. It asked her not to waste her effort and give up the idea of refining a new bottle. Gu Shijie closed her eyes and kept them shut until they reached the Fantian Palace. She did not speak at all. Gu Shijie had never actually taken the Saha world as her home. So when she was here, she had always been traveling around and treated the sky and the sea as her home. She used to be fine with this arrangement because she could go anywhere she wanted to go. The sky was the curtain and the land as her bed. When she was hungry, she could always visit a restaurant to eat. She had complete freedom, and no one could control her. However, she now felt that it would be a good idea to have a resting place. Otherwise, she would have to trouble others when she needed to rest. For example, a few days ago when she was injured, she rested in the residence of Long Sai, and now she had to rest again at the Fantian Palace. She secretly thought that it was not right to always stay in other people's house. When she was recovering in the house of Long Sai, the maids in his house always looked at her with a subtle expression, as if she had an affair with their general. She also heard one or two gossips while she was in his house. Of course, those gossips were not malicious, just some speculations. The maids knew that General Long had many friends, which included some female immortals. Those female immortals had a good relationship with him, but he never let these female immortals stay in his residence. Even if they visited him from afar, he would not let them stay overnight. The current medical skills of Long Sai were quite famous in the Saha world. When those immortals in the fairy world got injured in a fight and came to ask for his treatment, he would help to heal them, but never left any person in the house to stay. Regardless of how dangerous the injury, he would bring them outside to recover. However, Gu Shijie had lived in the house so freely. Gu Shijie was also housed in Long Sai's favorite place, the Hexian Tavern. General Long would make it a point to visit her and accompany her whenever he returned. Hence, it was reasonable for the little maids to gossip about her privately and regard her as the sweetheart of Long Sai. Some even guessed that good news between her and General Long was coming soon. In a turn of events, Gu Shijie now lived in the Fantian Palace that belonged to Di Fui. In the Fantian Palace, there were no maids, only the 8 mythological beasts who were in charge of everything in the palace. Nonetheless, Baizé specially invited 4 little flower fairies to be her maid and take care of her. The 4 little flower fairies were very sensible and lively. They were also very attentive to serve her. However, occasionally they also had a little gossip about her. The theme of the gossip was similar to the gossip in the house of Long Sai, except that Di Fui had replaced the male character. It was the same for the 8 mythological beasts. Except for Baize, the other 7 were very curious about her. They often found various excuses to visit her, and intentionally complimented their smart and wise young master. It was evident that they wanted to make her Difui a pair. This made Gu Shizhou somewhat speechless. There was once when Baize intentionally talked about it in front of her. Gu Shizhou simply asked, "General Bai, you should know that I am much older than him. The people outside call me Old Evil Lady and say that I am an old cow that wants to eat fresh grass. Don't you have any concerns in this regard?" Baize sneered and sized Gu Shizhou. "Miss Gu, you are just over 200 years old. Women at this age are considered young in our world. How can you be an old lady? As for the age difference between you and our young master, it is actually not too big. His Highness is 10,000 years older than the Devil Master. Aren't they a lovely couple living happily with each other? It has made so many people envious about them." Gu Shizhou was speechless. Baize seriously looked at her with a serious expression. "Miss Gu, in my eyes our young master and you are like a young couple that grows together. You are the perfect pair for each other." Gu Shizhou was speechless again. She was not convinced. Was there a young couple with such a huge age gap? Perhaps the 8 mythological beasts in the Fanteon Palace also shared a difference of opinion from the rest of the people here. Gu Shizhou was delighted that Difui had such good servants. However, she did not want to be a pair with the young master of this house. She just wanted to complete her mission. After she recovers from this injury, she must go out and find the right place to build a house, so that she would not have to listen to these gossips anymore. The scenery at the Fanteon Palace was extraordinarily beautiful. The architecture was amazing, and clouds were floating underneath the palace. There was flowing water all around the palace as well. The lake looked picturesque. Although Gu Shizhou had been to the Fanteon Palace several times, she was usually in a hurry and never had time to enjoy the scene. This was the first time that she could explore the palace. Baize was very hospitable. It allowed her to walk around and asked her to take this place as her home. However, Gu Shizhou did not walk around too much. In these days, she spent most of her time in the Qingxiao Pavilion that Baize prepared for her to meditate and rest. The Qingxiao Pavilion was located in the middle of the Great Lake. It was a majestic piece of architecture, and the spiritual power here was the most abundant. Gu Shizhou could easily restore her spiritual power here. Difui had also taken the time to visit her, but she was still angry at this naughty kid, so she had not given him a lot of attention. When she talked to him, she was always cold. Difui did not seem to care much. He always stayed at her place for about 15 minutes before he left. However, eventually he cut down his visits from 3 to 4 times a day to once every 2 days. Later, it became once every 3 days. On one particular day, after Gu Shizhou finished meditating, she opened her eyes and listened to the pitter-patter sound of rain outside. She then got up and walked to the window. She opened the window and watched until the rain subsided. The fairy-scented grass under the window was swaying in the rain, and the air was full of fresh fragrance. It was beautiful. Randomly, she had the mood to take a stroll, so she propped up an umbrella and walked out. Gu Shizhou walked along the corridor to avoid getting wet. The drizzle hit the lake and splashed its surface, while the fish in the lake jumped out of the water from time to time. Gu Shizhou looked up at the clear sky. She leaned against the railings and looked into the distance. She saw the vast expanse of mist and was simply amazed. It had been some time since she could freely observe and appreciate her surroundings. It would be perfect if there were a pair of lovers who leaned against each other in this weather. All of a sudden, Gu Zijia's vision became blurry as she saw another illusion before her eyes. It had been a while since her last experience. As usual, there were a man and a woman. The background was a small pavilion. The woman stood leaning against the railing, and the man leaned on her side. One of his arms was cuddling her, and she also leaned her head on his shoulder, as if they were a pair of lovebirds who enjoyed watching the scenery. She could hear the conversation between the two of them. "Celestial Master Zhua, have you thought about having kids? Do you want to have kids?" "Yes, I want it. I want a baby boy, as handsome as you are. What about you? Would you prefer a baby boy or a baby girl?" "I like them both as long as they are from you." We will have them. I will use your kids to keep you so that you can't bear to leave. Stupid. I think the best person to keep me is you, not our kids. Then I'll have double insurance. When you have kids and me, you certainly could not bear to leave us. You have to try to survive, or else I might cry until I die. All right, I will try very hard. Shijio. Even if I leave, I will try to come back. Please wait for me. The man in the mirage kissed his wife at his side, and the two of them hugged each other tightly. Gu Shijio stood on the curved corridor and looked at the scene like a mirage in the distance. Even though it was a lovely scene, Gu Zijia's heart ached again. She looked at the man in the mirage. Although she could not see his face, the purple robe reflected in her eyes and stung her heart. Celestial Masters wa. She whispered and extended her hand in that direction. However, a gust of wind came, and the illusion disappeared. The umbrella that Gu Shijio held in her hand flew with the wind. Gu Shijio could only watch as the umbrella that fell into the lake swiftly drifted away. She snorted in disappointment. This umbrella was a tool she brought up from the lower bound. She saw in the illusion that Celestial Masters had shared an umbrella with her. The umbrella seemed to be this particular one, so she valued this umbrella very much. When she saw it drop into the lake, she wanted to teleport there to take it. But suddenly, a hand patted on her shoulder. Let me do it. A purple figure flew out from her side. Her heart jumped. It was Di Fui again. Di Fui was dressed in a purple robe and looked dashing as usual. He had to act swiftly to catch up with the umbrella. He stretched out his hand to get the umbrella, and was back to the shore in a jiffy. The umbrella was handed to her. There you go. Gu Shijio thanked him and accepted it in her hand. She shook away the raindrops on the umbrella and carefully kept it. Who is Celestial Masters wa? Gu Shijio was surprised. She looked up at him and saw him standing against a column. His eyes were dark, and he had a smile on his face. His hair was casually tied up with a purple ribbon, and there were a few threads of hair that dropped by his cheek. Since he did not get a response, he decided to ask again. Who is Celestial Masters wa? Gu Shijio took a deep breath and smiled. Fui, let's talk about it. She did not want to be so ambiguous anymore. It was not beneficial for both sides. She knew that Huang Tu had another identity, which was Celestial Masters wa. She remembered when she was in the lower bound that she went to the house of Celestial Master Yu before. The house was empty. Gu Shijio wondered why there was no Celestial Masters wa if there was a Celestial Master Yu. She used to ask around, but no one knew that if there was a Celestial Masters wa. Now she understood. Celestial Masters wa was Huang Tu. The world had erased the existence of Huang Tu, and naturally also erased the existence of Celestial Masters wa. When she married him, she also liked to call him Celestial Masters wa. He asked her to wait for him, so she naturally had to wait. Regardless of what happened to her, she had to wait. The red mud stove was boiling water, and cups were on the table. For plates of desserts were placed one after the other, and each kind of dessert looked cute and appetizing. Everything was placed on a lotus-like jasper table that had two flower-like stools. The two of them were sitting on each side. Gu Shijio raised her hand to brew tea for him. Her movements were very graceful and pleasing. Di Fui sat there to observe her. She had been ignoring him for a few days, so it was rare this time that she wanted to talk to him. Di Fui took the cup of tea she poured for him and took a sip. Although the tea was good, he had a bad feeling about the situation. It seemed like she was going to talk openly with him. Sure enough, his intuition was very accurate. Gu Shijio first thanked him. She thanked him for his continuous rescues, and then she apologized. She apologized for the nonsense that she had said in front of the public. Di Fui was very impatient. What are you trying to say? Be direct. Gu Shijio took a deep breath. You asked me who Celestial Masters wa is. Let me tell you now. He is my husband. Dang. The teacup in Di Fui's hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. He looked at it for a moment, and then he looked up. What? What? Although he tried to calm down, his hands were involuntarily shaking. Gu Shijio did not look at his pale face. Her eyes were fixed on the lake outside. She began to tell him her own story. She storied about her own experiences in the lower bound, about the illusions she saw, and about her memory loss. Gu Shijiu provided enough details to ensure that her story was clear and informative. She used a very plain tone with no decorative language to make sure her message was direct. However, it had created a wave of turmoil in Di Fui's heart. The tea was getting colder, and the falling flowers outside the pavilion had covered the ground where they sat. The flowers fell on Gu Zijia's robe, her hair, and even her feet. Gu Shijiu revealed everything to him. It was as if a huge weight was lifted off her shoulders. Strangely, instead of feeling relieved, she also felt a bit of emptiness somewhere in her heart. Di Fui was an excellent listener though. He did not interrupt her once during her sharing. After listening to her, he asked her a few questions, and after she answered them, he turned and left. You have been looking for him all these years? Yes, I have been looking for him for more than 200 years. Although I have forgotten him, I am still looking for him in my subconscious. And the reason you have been looking for me is to complete your mission for his resurrection? Yes. Do you think I might be his reincarnation? There is a possibility because you have a lot of things in common with him. For example, both of you like purple clothes, and your body size seems to be almost the same. In fact, their appearance was almost identical. However, Gu Shijiu did not say the last one. After all, it was her sweet dream. Di Fui quietly listened to her about the commonalities. He had a short laugh, and there was a sense of teasing in his voice. As far as I know, once the Lord from lower bound successfully ascends to the upper bound, they will be a celestial being in this world, and it will be recorded in a book. If they are unsuccessful, they will never be able to return, and there will be no reincarnation. Don't you think that it is just wishful thinking that I am his reincarnation? Gu Zijiu shook her head. I am not sure. I did not say that you must be him. So this is the reason that you have been so ambiguous to me? Gu Shijiu did not answer, but she seemed to admit it from her expression. So, as of now, you are giving me the chance to train and see whether or not I am the reincarnation of Huang Tu. If you prove that I am him, then you will continue the relationship with me? Gu Shijiu could not deny, so she nodded. Di Fui's fingers tapped on the table. He laughed for a long while and slowly said, If I am not him, you will abandon me? Gu Shijiu struggled with this question. She took a deep breath and said, If that happens, we will still be friends. What makes you think that I will want to be your friend? Gu Shijiu was slightly stunned. I can help you to reach the stage of a mighty immortal faster. After all, this is for your own good, isn't it? There is nothing bad for you. I don't care about becoming a mighty immortal. Di Fui interrupted her. Gu Shijiu sighed. If that is the case, I have no idea what to do. Just to be clear, if I am not Huang Tu, there will be no chance of us getting together. Gu Shijiu bit her dry lips before responding. You can interpret it in this way. Di Fui stared at her for a long while. He gripped his sleeves tightly. At this moment, he had a rather stern look on his face. Although Gu Shijiu did not find it pleasant, she did not find it appropriate for her to leave either. The truth hurts, but a lie is worse. Gu Shijiu did not want to hurt him later on when his feelings had developed even further. Di Fui's feelings for Gu Shijiu would probably be equivalent to a kid having his first crush. When he liked her, he would be as aggressive as fire. However, this kind of feeling came fast and disappeared fast too. Once she revealed the truth, he would try to recover from this feeling, and would not be too hurt. Fui, you are still young. In fact, you don't have to think about a relationship yet. I think you should use your energy to practice. She tried to calm him and persuaded him, but she was interrupted by Di Fui. Who are you to tell me what to do? Why do I need to listen to you? Gu Shijiu remained silent. Di Fui stared at her and sneered. Gu Shijiu, why would you think that I want to be a spare tire? I can tell you now. I am not the reincarnation of Huang Tu. Even if I am, I will not accept your feelings toward me. The past is the past. In this life, I am Xinyanma or Di Fui. The celestial master Zhua or Huang Tu that you like has nothing to do with me. If you want to turn me into him, I can tell you that you are just dreaming. You can give up now. After he finished this sentence, he turned and walked away without looking back. This result was partially out of Gu Zijia's expectation. She felt empty in her heart as she stood there for a moment, and did not move. Meanwhile, the rain had stopped, and the air was fresh. The mussel came out of the water and climbed to her side. It clipped her dress with its shell, and then sighed. Master, you shouldn't tell everything to him. In this case, he will never be cooperative with you. Gu Shijio did not speak. She actually understood in her heart that the mussel was right. She should not reveal the truth at this moment. She should continue to be ambiguous with him to let him practice until she finished the mission. However, she always felt that it was unfair to him. The better Di Fui treated her, the more uneasy she was in her heart. Now that the truth was revealed, she was finally no longer holding any guilt. However, she did not know how to wriggle out of her current situation. What should she do with this task? She had not figured out what to do next when suddenly, Bai Zhe had come to the door. He was dressed in white and asked, Miss Gu, how is your injury? Thanks for your care, General Bai. It is getting better. Gu Shijio was basically recovered. She just needed a few more days of rest to get back out there. Miss Gu, according to the rules of the Fantion Palace, we usually don't allow any outsiders to stay in the palace. It was a special case for Miss Gu this time, so the young master allowed you to stay for a few days. Now that Miss Gu has recovered. Bai Zhe did not finish its sentence, but Gu Shijio had already understood the meaning behind it. The other party was trying to get her out. She took a deep breath and asked, Is this an order from your young master? Bai Zhe smiled, but his eyes could not hide the disappointment. It is the rules of this place. Miss Gu, please forgive me for this. Bai Zhe accidentally heard the conversation between Gu Shijio and Di Fui. It was very angry for its young master. It was so difficult for the young master to fall in love with someone, but he was treated as a spare tire in the end. This woman approached the young master just to save another man. She even wanted to change the young master into another person. Its young master was Shen Nianma, the son of the Divine Lord and the Great Devil. He was not the reincarnation of the Lord from Lower Bound. Even if he was, that could not represent anything. Anything in the past life should stay in the past. It had nothing to do with the young master in his current life. Gu Shijio smiled after a short ponder. Fine, I will leave. Where is His Highness? Let me say goodbye to him before I make my move. Do not worry. His Highness does not want to see you again. Take care. I think it is best for two of you not to meet again. Gu Shijio nodded her head lightly. Okay. She turned around and was ready to leave. However, before leaving the vicinity, she took out a fishing rod from her storage space and tossed a fish hook with bait into the lake. Bai Zhe was confused, so Gu Shijio casually explained, I owe him a bowl of fish soup. Just take it as a thank you from me for letting me stay here for a few days. Bai Zhe remained silent. It was already in the evening, and the sun was setting. That made the sky turn orange and purplish. Di Fui was enjoying wine as he sat in the pavilion above the pond. He drank quite a lot as there seemed to be 6 to 7 jars nearby. Besides that, his face blushed, and his vision looked blurred as well. Bai Zhe approached his master with very light footsteps. Quietly, he placed a bowl of fish soup on the table. What is this? Di Fui asked after taking a glimpse of the soup. Miss Gu made it. She said it is a token of appreciation for letting her stay here over the last few days. Bai Zhe answered honestly. Ah. Di Fui chuckled sarcastically and continued. Where is she? She left with 2 of her celestial pets. Di Fui did not say anything but twirled the wine glass in his hand as if he was pondering. Meanwhile, steam continued rising from the fish soup. It was getting cold as no one bothered to drink it. Di Fui was still drinking wine, and did not seem to be interested in taking a sip of the soup. Bai Zhe finally tried to convince him after watching for a while. Your Highness, do you want to try the soup? It is pretty good, but it would no longer be nice when it turns cold. Di Fui stared at the fish soup again and casually said, Just pour it away. I am not interested. Bai Zhe was shocked, as he remembered that his master was depressed after he returned home, because he did not get to drink the fish soup she made. How come he did not want to drink it now when Miss Gu made an effort to make the soup for him? Bai Zhe was there the entire time as Gu Shizhou caught the fish and made the soup for him. It was not as easy as he thought. She was looking for a particular fish, and she only found the one she wanted after the 16th attempt. Besides that, she also removed the fish scales and all the bones by herself before finally making the soup. During the cleaning process, the bones cut her hand as she lost her focus. She tasted the first pot of soup and poured it away, because she did not find it good enough. Initially, Bai Zhe was quite upset with her. However, he felt much better after seeing her putting in so much effort just to make a soup. The serving that Bai Zhe brought it to Di Fui was the third pot of soup she made. Even he thought that was the best soup he has ever smelled, and he could not make such good soup by himself. Hence, after he heard Di Fui's instruction, he coughed as he found it wasteful. "Your Highness, the fish soup is delicious. Why not take a sip? Pour it away." Bai Zhe remained silent. He still wanted to convince him, but he did not expect that Di Fui was already running out of patience. He took the fish soup and walked toward the window. In the next second, the soup along with the bowl was thrown into the lake. Di Fui was standing in front of the window. He watched as the soup splashed onto the surface of the lake. He only turned around when the water returned to its tranquil state. Bai Zhe, she has nothing to do with me starting from today, so you do not have to report anything about her anymore. Also, stop following her around. Bai Zhe nodded. All right, master. The 8 mythological animals were instructed to follow Gu Shizhou to ensure her safety. It was because of this that Di Fui could arrive in time when Gu Shizhou was in danger at the Yari Mountain. Certainly, the 8 mythological animals had done an outstanding job. Perhaps it was time for them to take a break. However, could their young master really lay down everything between him and her? Bai Zhe doubted it. He looked at his master and realized he was drinking again. After all, His Highness was good at drinking. Hence, it was not easy for him to get tipsy. Bai Zhe used to worry that his master was over-consuming alcohol. Soon, he realized that it was normal for him. His young master was generally good at drinking like his father. In fact, it was not easy for the Divine Lord to get drunk. Therefore, Bai Zhe just let him continue drinking and stood there. Consequently, Di Fui was drunk. All the wines stored in the Fantion Palace were extremely valuable with amazing taste. It was also high in alcohol content, and that made Di Fui fall asleep for 3 days in a row. He had a few dreams during those 3 days. The dreams were quite confusing, and it did not make much sense to him. He met Gu Shizhou again in the dream, and they even went on an adventure together. He spent most of his dreams running and escaping in dangerous situations. There was even a cave with many weird and ferocious beasts chasing after them inside. Fortunately, they made it as they fought against the beasts together. He was holding her hand throughout the adventure. After they escaped from the cave, they saw an ocean with strong waves below a cliff. Suddenly, Gu Shizhou took out a fishing rod and claimed that she was going to make fish soup for him. He then happily waited and watched her prepare the fish soup. She scooped a bowl of soup and passed it to him as she smiled. "Here you go, it is specially made for you." When he was ready to take it, a hand suddenly stretched over and took the soup away. Di Fui was very pissed off and saw a man with a purple robe as he lifted his head. Strangely, the man in the purple robe was just standing in front of Di Fui without wearing a mask. However, he could not see his appearance clearly. His focus was only on the fish soup in his hand. Gu Shizhou was shocked and looked at the man in the purple robes. "Huang Tu, Celestial Master Zhua, you are finally here." The man in purple robes opened his arms as he looked at her. "Shizhou." Di Fui watched helplessly as Gu Shizhou, who was holding his hand with love earlier, ran into the embrace of another man. Di Fui's hands trembled as he watched them. He wanted to separate them, but he just could not move as if his feet were nailed to the ground. It felt like a century had passed before Gu Shizhou finally noticed Di Fui. Apologetic, she smiled. "Fui, I have been looking for him for a few centuries. He is the only one I like. How about me?" Di Fui asked with a hoarse voice. Gu Shizhou smiled with guilt. "Fui, I only treat you as a kid. You can have all the fish soup in the pot. Take care." Di Fui was very upset. He just watched Gu Shijie turn and left with the man in purple robes, and she did not even look back. He fixed his eyes on the loving couple as he stood there. They were happily whispering to each other as they left, but the scene hurt him so much. He shifted his gaze to the pot nearby, and realized there was enough fish soup to fill half a bowl. He pursed his lips and flicked his sleeve. Consequently, the pot immediately flew away and dropped into the ocean. Bang! Di Fui awoke from his long sleep. He had a bad headache. He saw Bai Zhe with a worried expression as he slowly opened his eyes. "Your Highness, you are awake." Di Fui was informed that he had been asleep for 3 days. It was all just a dream. He got up from the bed and looked into the mirror. He looked horrible, his hair was messy, his eyes were filled with loads of capillaries, his clothes were crumpled, and there were even a few wine stains on his collar. He had not been so miserable before. Bai Zhe was certainly concerned for him. He had not seen his master in such a condition. Di Fui lifted his head, and his gaze met Bai Zhe's gaze in the mirror. He smiled and said, "Bai Zhe, get all the necessary items ready. I want to bathe." Bai Zhe's eyes sparkled. Sure. His young master would usually use the cleaning spell to clean himself up. Hence, this act of physically cleaning himself was a sign that he was going to say goodbye to the past and start everything over again. Indeed, Di Fui came out from the bathroom with a fresh look after an hour. He was wearing a light green robe, and he got half of his long black hair tied with a black hairpin. He was certainly dashing. He was smiling as he walked out, and all of the lady servants could not stop looking at him. "Bai Zhe, is there any food? I am hungry." Sure. Please be patient. I will prepare something now." Bai Zhe quickly rushed into the kitchen. Quick enough, Bai Zhe had prepared a table full of food. Di Fui slowly enjoyed the food, just like how he used to. Bai Zhe finally felt relieved. Miss Gus' appearance probably attracted his highness. It was good that he finally understood and could let go of her. Di Fui saw Bai Zhe send 4 lady servants away as he finished his meal. The 4 lady servants were flower elves. They knew that this was a good place for them to cultivate and upgrade their spiritual power. Thus, they tried many ways and begged to stay, as 1 day of cultivation in the Fantion Palace was equivalent to a month of hard work out there. However, Bai Zhe did not want to give his master any reason to recall anything about Gu Shijie. After all, they were hired to serve Gu Shijie when she was here. Hence, all of them should go too since Gu Shijie has left. Bai Zhe was negotiating with them when Di Fui came out. Casually, he interrupted the conversation. "Let them stay." The 4 flower elves were so happy and quickly kowtowed as an appreciation. Lazily, Di Fui added, "However, the Fantion Palace does not pay servants with nothing to contribute. Hence, the cleanliness of this palace will now be your responsibility. Those who are lazy, just pack your stuff and leave." "Yes, Your Highness." The 4 flower elves immediately left to get their work done. Bai Zhe looked at Di Fui with a complicated expression. "Your Highness." Di Fui waved his hand to dismiss him. "It does not look good to only keep 8 of you in the palace. All of you are mythological animals who can compete with mighty immortals. How can you do chores every day? Go recruit a few servants and get them to do the chores." Bai Zhe did not dare to disobey. Hence, he left after taking the note. Certainly, there were many good candidates when the Fantion Palace announced their available vacancy. Even senior immortals had applied for the role. Bai Zhe carefully selected from the pool of applicants and finally chose 8 servants and 4 maids. When it was about to lead them back to the palace, someone called him. "General Bai." Bai Zhe turned back and saw a pretty young lady standing nearby. She was Guan Jinhua from the Fengyan Valley. She was followed by several brother and sister apprentices behind her. "General Bai, is Nianma in the palace? I represent my master to send a letter and want to hand it over to him personally." Bai Zhe nodded. Yes. She was surprised by his positive response and quickly followed him. Guan Jinhua almost could not hide her excitement. Along the way, she tried to talk to Bai Zhe casually. However, Bai Zhe did not speak much but just smiled. Guan Jinhua was the favorite disciple of Master Fengxing, so her status was naturally noble. It was higher than the servants that Bai Zhe had recruited. Nonetheless, she chatted with them as well. Baizé coldly looked at her. He thought that this girl was open and friendly. It seemed that its young master liked girls who were open and friendly as well. Perhaps Guan Jinhua could make its young master happy again. Guan Jinhua entered the Fantian Palace for the first time. She was nervous and excited. However, on the surface, she did not show anything. What was so special about Fantian Palace? It was the place where the Divine Lord lived. In this continent, there were not many people who could enter this place. Now she was finally going in. The entire architecture and design of the Fantian Palace amazed Guan Jinhua. A thought suddenly came to her mind. If she could marry Shen Nianma, she would be the hostess of this palace in the future. How good was that? However, Nianma already had someone in his heart. He liked that old woman a lot. Even if she could use some trick to be part of Fantian Palace, she could only be a concubine here. It was not bad to be a concubine in this place though. What's more, Shen Nianma was so charming. When Guan Jinhua finally saw Di Fui, he was sitting in the garden and playing chess by himself. He was wearing a light blue robe that made him look like the sun after the rain. The wind raised his hairline, and he seemed very casual. Guan Jinhua was still a bit nervous to see him. After all, he was furious the last time they saw each other. She stepped forward and tried to be cheerful. Senior brother apprentice. Di Fui was still holding a black chess piece. He just nodded and faintly said, "I am not your senior brother apprentice anymore. Why are you here?" Guan Jinhua respectfully handed over her master's letter. "Master has a letter for you. I hope that you can take a look at it." Di Fui was stunned. He took the letter and opened it. There were actually a few pages of paper, so Master Fengxing had written a long letter for him. He first talked about his friendship with the Divine Lord, then said that he appreciated the talent of Shen Nianma. He mentioned that he should not forcibly impose his own thinking on his apprentice, and he should not secretly take action against Gu Shijie without Shen Nianma's knowledge. The letter seemed to be full of sincerity. The final purpose was to tell him that he had spoken with the other 9 masters. They want Di Fui to go back to be their apprentices and forget what had happened in the past. No master in history apologized to their apprentice and asked them to return to their apprenticeship. Master Fengxing had given in to Di Fui. After Di Fui swept through the letter, he put down the letter and did not say anything but continued to play chess. Guan Jinhua looked at him and held her breath. After waiting for a reasonable amount of time, she finally spoke. "Senior brother apprentice, your masters regretted that their actions made you leave and they blamed themselves every day. They said that regardless of whether you recognize them as your master or not, they will treat you as their favorite apprentice. Senior brother apprentice, Master Fengxing said that when the Divine Lord sent you to join their 10 apprenticeships, he must have had his reason. If you give up like this, when the Divine Lord and the Great Devil return, they might feel disappointed. Senior brother apprentice, the martial arts in this word is profound. With your talent, once these famous teachers teach you, you can get twice the result with half the effort, so that your skill can get to the next level in the shortest time. The 10 masters are the leaders of all kinds of martial art. You shouldn't cut off all the relationships with them just because of short-term anger." Guan Jinhua was compelling. She discussed and analyzed the various pros and cons with Di Fui. Di Fui did not look up. Instead, the black and white chess pieces continued to move across the board. After Guan Jinhua finished talking to him, she found that he had not listened to her at all. She was disappointed but was not ready to give up. But just when she planned to continue talking, Di Fui pointed at his opposite seat. "Let's play a game. We will talk about it if you win. All right?" Guan Jinhua was surprised by this gesture. She nodded. Good. What surprised Di Fui was that Guan Jinhua was actually a master at playing chess. After a game of chess, although Guan Jinhua lost the game, Di Fui was quite happy, so they actually continued to play 3 matches. During the game of chess, Guan Jinhua tried to talk with Di Fui. She told him that General Long Sai had broken some rules and was sent to prison. Gu Shijie had been running around for him. She entered into the heavenly palace, met the Emperor Immortal, and pleaded for Long Sai. Di Fui's hand was holding a white chess piece. He was stunned to hear Gu Zijia's name. he casually asked. What was the rule that Long Sai broke? I heard that he has a relationship with the former imperial prince, and the former imperial prince has a plan to rebel against the Emperor Immortal. He had contacted his old followers secretly, but the information was leaked, and someone reported to the palace. I am not very clear about it. I only heard about it when Master Fengxing inadvertently talked about it. Difui did not speak. Although he was young, he also knew the cruelty of political struggle. The former imperial prince, regardless of whether he wanted to rebel or not, was always a thorn in the eyes of the current Emperor Immortal. He would certainly like to get rid of him. Even if the former imperial prince did not intend to rebel, the Emperor Immortal would somehow find a way to eliminate him. Not to mention that Yin Yanli was actually quite an ambitious person. Long Sai used to be a subordinate of Yin Yanli, and was also promoted by Yin Yanli when he was still unknown. In fact, he was really in contact with Yin Yanli recently. If Yin Yanli were really rebellious, it would be easy to guess that he would try to get Long Sai involved. Nonetheless, it would appear on the surface that Long Sai had been caught in between the crossfire. The Emperor Immortal should know Long Sai well. However, he still sent him to prison. What was his intention behind it? Was he trying to use Long Sai to threaten someone? Perhaps, the target of Emperor Immortal seemed to be Gu Shijio. Why did he want to threaten Gu Shijio? Was he trying to get Gu Shijio to work for him? Or did he want something from her? Difui had a series of thoughts in his mind but quickly dismissed them. He had nothing to do with this woman anymore. Why should he care about her? When he was about to refocus his mind to continue playing chess, Baizé walked in to report, Your Highness, His Majesty sent his chamberlain to invite Your Highness to the fairy flower feast tonight. Baizé handed over a golden-stamped invitation card. Difui did not intend to accept it. Usually, he was too lazy to participate in such gatherings. However, the Emperor Immortal, Yi Tianli, had a deep relationship with him and the Fantian Palace. In the past, Yi Tianli used to pursue Xin Nianmo's mother. Two of them almost got engaged. Later, he even befriended the Divine Lord and became good friends with the couple. He was already in touch with Xin Nianmo when Xin Nianmo was still a kid. Nonetheless, the kid did not really like his uncle Yi. After the divine couple left, Xin Nianmo had been traveling around on his own. He rejected all invitations from the Emperor Immortal, and was too lazy to socialize with him. Therefore, the Emperor Immortal still did not know what he looked like even after he turned into an adult. This time, the Emperor Immortal must be curious to meet him after his unpleasant encounter with the Great Guardians. Difui never felt the need to satisfy the curiosity of others, so he just waved his hand to dismiss the stamped invitation. Reject it. I don't want to go. Baizé was stunned and hesitated whether or not to respond. Difui noticed that he obviously wanted to say something. He was somewhat impatient. Just say what you wish to say. Therefore, Baizé continued, Your Highness, the chamberlain who sent the invitation card said that His Majesty had invited friends from all around the world to the feast, which includes the mysterious grimace person. Moreover, she has agreed to attend the feast. Difui was certainly surprised to hear that but immediately continued to play his game of chess. It has nothing to do with me. Baizé choked. It had been nearly half a month since Gu Zijia's departure, and the young master had never mentioned about her since then. Even when he saw Baizé and the servants cleaned up the place she used to stay, he did not say anything. He did not bother to pursue cooking anymore. He told Baizé that he simply did not have talent in this area and did not want to waste time. The young master used to love eating fish, but he had not eaten it for half a month. Even though Baizé put it on his desk, he would just leave it aside. The most significant change of the young master was that he never wore his iconic purple robe anymore. Initially, the young master loved to dress in purple. However, in the past 10 days, he wore a varied array of robes. Baizé initially thought that its young masters would not be able to resist his temptation and would look for her after 10 days. It seems he was mistaken. The young master was very steady in handling relationship issue. Perhaps this relationship was still in the puppy love stage for the young master. Now that the truth had been revealed, he could quickly let go of the feeling. Baizé was delighted. It looked at the invitation card again before putting it away. Since its young master did not want to go, it should just forget about it. It turned and left. However, while it was still an earshot away, it heard a soft dock sound behind him followed by a snort from Guan Jinhua. The lady asked in shock, "Senior brother apprentice, are you intentionally making the wrong move? You are killing 3 of your pieces." After a brief second, it heard Difui casually answer, "Perhaps you have not seen it. This is a trick. Without destruction, there can be no construction." Bai Zhe nodded. Not bad. It was true that without destruction, there could be no construction. When the Divine Lord played chess, he liked to use this trick as well. It involuntarily shook its head as it thought that its young master was distracted by the earlier news. It seemed that it had overthought. It strode away. What Bai Zhe did not know was that the young master lost the game, and Guan Jinhua was pleased with that. Gu Shijiu was sitting in a courtyard somewhere in the 7th heaven. It was a private house that Gu Shijiu just bought. It was located in the downtown area, which was crowded with people. The house was not too far away from the local market. The muscle did not understand why its owner would buy a house in such a crowded place. She had always liked to live quietly. Therefore, when she bought this house, the muscle could not help but ask about it. Gu Shijiu only answered with a few words. "The greatest place to hide is in the city." Gu Shijiu then asked the muscle, "Do you like the food in restaurant Xian Kalai?" The muscle was very honest. "Yes, I do. This place is very close to the restaurant, so you can go there to eat anytime you like." The muscle's eyes shimmered. It found that its owner considered about it when deciding to where to stay, so it felt touched. Soon, the muscle found out the beauty of this house. There was a fountain in the courtyard of the house. The water from the fountain was milky white and cold. Even if people drank from it on a hot day, it would still be too cold. The house was disliked by its original owner, and was sealed away. However, after seeing it, Gu Shijiu did not hesitate to buy it, because it was a rare medicine fountain. By using the water from this fountain, it could help in doubling the quantity as well as the quality of the medicine she made. When Gu Shijiu came out of the Fantian Palace, she was adamant about getting her own place. With her own home, she did not have to bother others when she got injured, and did not have to worry about being driven out by others. Nonetheless, the muscle felt that a person like her should live in a beautiful mountain, and in a quaint house to show her uniqueness. However, Gu Shijiu told it that such people could not hide. Eventually, they would be invited to out from the mountain as high-ranking hermits. Besides, it was not convenient to live on a mountain. Living in this downtown area would not attract attention. When she was tired after wandering around the world outside, she could rest here without having to travel too far. When Gu Shijiu bought this house, she disguised her appearance and asked an ordinary worker to furnish it. Everything was simple and ordinary. It would not attract the general public's attention. Even Long Sai also did not know about it. Gu Shijiu managed to take a good rest in this house for more than 10 days. Every day, she practiced and exercised. She also refined medicine and strolled around the yard. She enjoyed it a lot. If it were not for Long Sai, she would continue her simple life like this. Unfortunately, after she recovered from her injury, she went to General Long's residence and saw that the general's house was sealed. She got to know from the general's housekeeper that Long Sai was guilty of a crime, and that he was being investigated. He was sent to the prison. It was easy to find out the ins and outs of the matter with Gu Zijia's ability. Her thought was in the same direction as Difui. She thought that the reason why the Emperor Immortal caught Long Sai was to lure her out. She considered the circumstances and decided to go to the 9th heaven to meet the Emperor in person. The Emperor Immortal was not an easy person to meet. He was busier than a president in the modern world. His schedule every day was full, so if she wanted to go through the standard procedure, she would need to send an invitation to make an appointment. In that case, she would have to delay her visit for at least a few days. Therefore, Gu Shijiu used teleportation to bypass all these formalities. When she arrived, the Emperor Immortal was handling official duties in his study room. He was surprised to see her all of a sudden. Nevertheless, because his skill was high enough, he was not panicked when he saw her. Gu Shizhou revealed her identity without any delay. She was also very straightforward. She had an open and honest conversation with the Emperor Immortal. Unfortunately, Gu Shizhou found that the situation was really disadvantageous for Long Sai. There was a large stack of evidence in the hands of Emperor Immortal. There were confessions from those who were once the subordinates of Yin Yanli. Those people reported that Yin Yanli planned to rebel. They even provided a list of allies. In recent months, Long Sai and Yin Yanli had also had contact. Although his name was not present in the so-called alliance, he was also a suspect. Long Sai had never reported the fact that Yin Yanli was still alive. Even though he did not join in his alliance, he had committed a crime for keeping it a secret. Hence, it was not a mistake for the Emperor Immortal to put Long Sai into prison. After reviewing the materials, Gu Shizhou only asked the Emperor a few words. "Your Majesty, do you believe that Long Sai really rebelled?" The Emperor Immortal did not speak. He naturally did not believe it. Gu Shizhou spoke again. "Long Sai has been working hard for His Majesty all these years. I believe that His Majesty knows his character very well. Yin Yanli had promoted him, and he did favor Long Sai. However, even though Long Sai knew that Yin Yanli was still alive and did not report, it can't prove that he wants to rebel against you. After all, His Majesty values Long Sai a lot. I believe that His Majesty is also very clear about this. Hence, there should be a reason why His Majesty has put him in prison. Let's just be direct. What do you need me to do for you to release Long Sai?" The Emperor Immortal appreciated her straightforward stance, so he brought up his own conditions. "Nianma is the son of my good friend. I don't want to see his reputation being shamed." Gu Shizhou naturally understood what he was referring to. The reputation of Shen Nianma had always been excellent. The only thing that made him blemished that was that he recently rebelled against his masters and fell in love with the evil old lady. She looked down for a moment and chuckled. After that, she looked directly at the Emperor. "Do His Majesty also feel that his relationship with me is something to be shameful of?" The Emperor Immortal was stunned for a moment. "Do you really love him? Would you die for him?" Gu Shizhou did not speak. The Emperor Immortal turned away and said, "If not, please let him go. He is still a kid after all." Gu Shizhou finally smiled and said faintly, "Your Majesty has overthought. I have always treated Nianma as a kid. When I said those words, I was angry, but I never expected that it would spread so frantically. Please rest assured. I will find a chance to make this clear in public." Emperor Immortal sighed with relief. "Let me arrange an opportunity to let you make it clear. What do you think? How about Long Sai? I will try to restore him to his usual life." Gu Shizhou agreed with it. Therefore, after careful planning with the Emperor Immortal, there was this fairy flower feast today. When Gu Shizhou received the invitation card, she was in her own small courtyard. The attendant of the Heavenly Palace specially sent her an invitation card and asked her to go. After the attendant left, the muscle was surprised. "Master, I never expected that the people of the Emperor Immortal could find you here. This small courtyard is already exposed." Gu Shizhou twirled a branch in her hand and sighed gently. "Yes, this Emperor Immortal is quite powerful. She has been living a simple life for a few days. After she came out of the ninth heaven, she had also used her teleportation power, which made people unable to follow her. She had surveyed the area a few times and confirmed that no one followed before she returned to her own small courtyard. Hence, she did not expect to be found by the people of the Emperor Immortal." When the Emperor Immortal sent someone to hand her the invitation card personally, it was, in fact, also to warn her that he had figured out her whereabouts. "Master, do you want to go?" Gu Shizhou cleaned up the place and gently answered, "Of course. After all, I have promised Shin Nianma that I want to make it clear before the people to return him his good reputation." The muscle remained silent. The Fairy Flower Feast was a famous event in the Saha world. It was held every March and carried the same weight as the legendary Mother Queen of Heaven's Peach Feast. It was a big gathering between the Emperor and the Immortals. Although this event was typically held mid-March, this year, it was held half a month earlier. The Immortals received the invitation for early March. The Emperor Immortal was still well respected here. All the famous immortals in the Saha world would come to the feast once they received an invitation. The venue would be beautifully decorated with various flowers. The hall that the emperor used to host the guests was the Yaoqi Tavern. There were many tables and chairs arranged in the chamber. On the tables, there were an array of dishes from the sea, air, and land. Before the feast started, many immortals had already arrived. It was very crowded in the hall because everyone greeted and chatted with each other. A lot of gossips were discussed, and the topics for this year were particularly more than before. The topics included the disappearance of fairy pets, the case of Yun Yanli's rebellion, and of course, the affair between the mysterious grimace person and Shen Yanma. These immortals had heard countless versions previously. Hence, before the arrival of Emperor Immortal, they gathered into groups to quietly discuss this topic. The existence of the divine couple was a legend in the Saha world. They had given their best to protect this world, so everyone had full respect for them. Naturally, they would care about their son. Besides, they had never seen Shen Yanma as an adult. Therefore, in most people's minds, Shen Yanma was still a kid. When the attendees talked about this, it appeared that Gu Shijie was very unethical to approach a kid. Furthermore, everyone also discussed her physical appearance. After all, when Gu Shijie appeared, most of the time she was wearing a mask, and no one could see her body figure due to the robe she wore. If they did not get the exact information, no one could even tell if she was a man or woman. Gu Shijie had shown her true appearance once in the Fengyan Valley, and the audience present were the 10 masters with their apprentices. The 10 masters did not like Gu Shijie, so even their disciples followed suit. The 10 masters also sternly warned their disciples not to say anything about the incident that happened in the Fengyan Valley. Hence, when they heard people talking about mysterious grimace person's ugliness, they did not interrupt and correct them. At most, they would comment generically that the most important element of immortals is their heart. Why should you care about their looks? Naturally, this sentence was misinterpreted by the public to mean that she was hideous, which was why no one talked about her. Besides, people would typically not believe the words of young disciples, such as those of spiritual master Yu Hang, Si Qing, and Heng Qing. Therefore, there were many accounts of Gu Zijie's appearance. There was a rumor that she was gorgeous, and her beauty could amaze the world. In stark contrast, there was a rumor that she was extremely ugly, to the extent that everyone would be appalled by her appearance. Some also claimed that although she was ugly, she had a very high-level skill that could help her mask and change her appearance to make her look beautiful. That was why Shen Yanma was fascinated by her beauty, and even betrayed his apprenticeship for her. Still, the changed appearance could only deceive those with low skill. Those of higher skill levels could see through all her illusions. More than half of the people who came to participate in the fairy flower feast were mighty immortals. Based on the last rumor, they thought that if she appeared, they would undoubtedly be able to see her original appearance. When the time came, they could join forces to restore her original appearance, so that she could no longer use illusions to confuse people. The reason why they had this idea was that the emperor passed a message saying that the mysterious grimace person would be present today, and would announce something important to everyone. The crowd was excited and tried to speculate what this mysterious grimace person would announce. Would it be a wedding announcement between her and Shen Yanma? The more the people discussed, the more they felt that it was a possibility. Some were worried while others were filled with anger. The official starting time of the feast was 5 p.m. It had not reached the time yet, but the colorful lights in the hall had been switched on, and almost all the celestial beings had arrived. There were more than 200 tables arranged in the hall, and each table had 2 to 3 celestial beings present. Some sat according to hierarchy, while others sat with their friends. Occasionally there were waiters and waitresses holding plates with all kinds of melons and fruits. The scene was very crowded and lively. The attendees were speculating when the mysterious grimace person would arrive. Of course, they were also speculating if Shen Yanma would attend. When they were still happily discussing, there was a loud report from the outside. Spiritual Master Yu Hang, Master Fengxing, and Spiritual Lord Yunlong, etc., have arrived. The 10 great masters actually came to attend the feast. The celestial beings were all excited because these 10 masters were outstanding, and they usually did not participate in these social activities. They never expected that 10 of them would all attend this time. As a result, all the celestial beings stood up and greeted them. After some greeting, the immortal servants led the 10 masters to sit down at the VIP table. It seemed that today's feast was going to be extravagant. When it was close to 5 p.m., the Emperor Immortal finally arrived and sat in a chiefly position. However, even though the Emperor had arrived, the mysterious grimace person was still nowhere to be seen. All the celestial beings were a little bit curious. Entering this hall would require each person to pass through 5 entrances. Once Gu Shijio arrived at the first entrance, the guard would report her arrival. From the first entrance to the hall, it would need to take about 15 minutes. Therefore, everyone would be ready for her grand arrival when she came. It was rumored that this mysterious grimace person would always arrive on time, and would never break her promise. According to the current time, there was only 1 more minute to 5 p.m. However, there was no news from the first entrance yet. Chapter 2077. A lot of people looked to the Emperor Immortal to see whether he had news for them. The Emperor Immortal gently cleared his throat. Everyone, please be patient. Since that lady promised me that she would come, she will definitely come. Perhaps something delayed her schedule. It is normal to be slightly late sometimes. Someone could not help but laugh at this statement. Perhaps this grimace person doesn't dare to come? I agree. She will probably be surrounded here, so she is afraid of it. It seems that this grimace person is not that special after all. She likes to pretend to be mysterious, but becomes timid at the crucial moment. Humph. Even if she is not timid, she is not on time. There were many different opinions, and their voices were getting louder. Haha. Suddenly they heard a chuckle from the sky. The laughter was loud and clear. The sound seemed to come from quite a distance away, but in a split second, everyone saw a blurry image in front of them, and there was a person in the middle of the hall. This person donned a bright red dress and had long black hair. The dress was not skin-tight, but looked elegant. When it fluttered along with the wind, it faintly outlined her graceful body figure. She did not tie her long hair into a bundle on her head, but just merely tied it into a ponytail with a jade hairband. She put a fox-shaped pin at the corner of her hair too. The fox was vivid, especially its pair of eyes that appeared to move along with her actions. The body figure of this woman was perfect while the red dress was very eye-catching. When she stood in the middle of the hall, it felt like there was a lively object being drawn in a black and white portrait. It made the crowd fix their eyes on her. The hall was very noisy and lively at first, but now it was hushed. Everyone was trying to identify this woman. After all, the Saha world was a cultivating fairyland. Everyone's dressing style was elegant and simple. In fact, most of the time, the celestial beings looked plain and simple. Therefore, most of the clothes worn by the people present were cloud white or light blue. Of course, women like to be beautiful. Hence, especially on such occasions, they would try to be unique by donning some accessories. When they walked, it could produce some sounds that caught attention. Although the standard of the guests invited was mighty immortals and above, there were very few women who fit that category. There were only 5 or 6 female mighty immortals, and they had been practicing for more than 5,000 years. To throw a grand feast, the Emperor Immortal knew that he would need to invite more women. Therefore, the requirement of female guests was lower. As long as they reached the level of a golden immortal, they could attend this fairy flower feast. Even then, there were only a few celestial beings who could attend. In total, there were only 16 of them present, and each looked unique. It usually attracted people's attention when there were female celestial beings present for such events. During the feasts, some of the male celestial beings automatically approached the female celestial beings and often sent signals to them. Almost every female celestial beings were the focus of the audience, especially the 2 most beautiful female celestial beings present that night. Truth be told, they also enjoyed being the center of attention. However, when the red dress woman appeared, the focus of the audience was instantly transferred. The crowd simply could not ignore her presence. Chapter 2078. The male suitors had forgotten about their initial targets and now shifted their attention to this lady. One male celestial being was initially peeling peanuts for the most beautiful fairy. But after the appearance of the woman in red, he put the peanut shells in the hand of the female celestial being, and he ate the peanuts himself. This red-dressed woman's body was gorgeous, and her aura was also powerful. It seemed that she was at the level of a mighty immortal or above. The only thing that disappointed the crowd was the fact that she wore a mask on her face that only exposed her beautiful eyes. When she swept her eyes across the hall, it seemed like she could extract one's soul away from their body. Who was this woman? How could she appear out of nowhere? What skill did she possess? Many questions popped up. This woman actually arrived exactly on time. When she stood there, a drum went off to signal that it was precisely 5 p.m. The woman did not care about the surprised crowd. She walked toward the Emperor Immortal and bowed. "Your Majesty, I think I am not late to the feast, right?" The Emperor Immortal stood up and smiled. "Of course, mighty Immortal Gu. You have come at the right time. Please take your seat." He then looked around at the crowd that was still stunned. In fact, he felt satisfied with their response. When Gu Shijio appeared in his study and negotiated with him, she also dressed this way. At that moment, the Emperor was also stunned by her beauty. Of course, he would never admit that he found her attractive. He would only say that he was surprised someone could enter into his premises. He introduced Gu Shijio to everyone. "Everyone, this lady is Gu Shijio, also known as Mighty Immortal Gu. Please get to know her." The brains of the celestial beings present finally started working again. Was this the mysterious grimace person? It could not be right. Before this revelation, the hearts of the celestial beings felt like a hammer was beating them. However, it now felt as if their brains were struck by lightning. The hall was so quiet that one could even hear if a needle fell on the ground. Everyone stared at Gu Shijio, and they had only one thought in their minds. They wanted her to take off the mask on her face. Also, her voice was very pleasant. The best-looking female celestial being was rather unhappy with this turn of events. The male celestial being next to her had not woken up from his daze yet, and he was still putting peanut shells in her slender hand. She tried very hard not to throw the peanut shell at the male celestial being's face. She elegantly put the shell on a plate, then looked at Gu Shijio and smiled. "So you are the famous mysterious grimace person. Now when we see you, you look exactly like what we have heard. However, on such an occasion, it is appropriate for you to wear a mask to meet us, right?" Although the celestial beings in the Saha world could be immortal once they practiced to the level of a mighty immortal, their appearance would change slightly with the passage of time. Once a celestial being had practiced to the level of a golden immortal, their speed of aging would slow down dramatically. It would appear that even after 1,000 years, their body would only look like it aged for a year. To reach the level of a golden immortal, it took at least hundreds to thousands of years. By the time they reached that level, they would look like a woman in their late 20s. Only a few geniuses could reach the level of a golden immortal level in 300 to 400 years, and they would look like a woman in their early 20s, 23 to 24 years old. For example, this best-looking female mighty immortal, Fairy Wuxia, was 4,000 years old, but she looked like a 27-year-old. It was considered very young. Therefore, since the skills of this mysterious grimace person must be extremely high, it seemed like she had almost reached the level of a great deity. According to their estimations, she should be at least 10,000 years old or even more. Hence, even if she could maintain her body shape and voice well, her looks must have aged. She should look like a woman between 40 and 50 years old. Perhaps, her facial muscles had been sagging, which was why she always wore a mask to cover her ugliness. On the contrary, Fairy Wuxia had always been proud of her beauty. Even if her skills were not as good as others, her outlook was always glamorous and could not be taken away by other people. After she said those words to Gu Shijio, she was cheered on by the crowd. Everyone started to persuade Gu Shijio to remove her mask. They used different excuses to achieve their goal, but essentially, everyone was curious about her true appearance. Even the Emperor Immortal was somewhat curious. He had not seen the actual appearance of Gu Shijie before. However, he had heard from his 4 custodians that she was gorgeous. Nonetheless, he did not know how beautiful she was. Could she be comparable to the great devil, Ning Xuema? In the past, the great devil, Ning Xuema, also liked to wear red, and her beauty had amazed the entire Saha world. At this time, only the 10 masters were silent. After all, they had already seen the true appearance of Gu Shijie. Master Fengxing suddenly coughed. This lady has always been wearing a mask, and everyone is used to it. It is understandable to wear it this time. Besides, for us to cultivate immortality, our skin is only present to cover our body. Why is everyone bothered about her appearance? The other 9 masters nodded to agree with his statement. Gu Shijie was sitting steadily. After she finished listening to everyone, she chucked. Master Fengxing is right. Why would you all bother about my appearance? There is no rule stating that a guest can't wear a mask to attend the feast. Your Majesty, what do you think? The Emperor Immortal answered, this. The more she rejected, the more curious they were about her appearance. The Emperor Immortal smiled and said, there is really no such rule in the Saha world. Even if mighty Immortal Gu always wears a mask, it is not against the rules. However, since everyone comes to this gathering to make more friends, if mighty Immortal Gu continues to wear a mask, no one will know your true appearance. In the future, if they meet you somewhere else, they will not be able to recognize you. It's not a good thing, so if there is no other problem, I think mighty Immortal Gu should take off her mask. Since the Emperor Immortal said this, everyone also started to follow and persuade her. Gu Shijie looked down and smiled. I don't want to make any friend here, so it doesn't matter if they recognize me or not. I came here just to make an announcement, not to have beauty competition with other celestial beings. Your Majesty, I hope that you can understand my position. She did not even give face to the Emperor Immortal. Some people were not happy with it. They yelled, Mighty Immortal Gu, how can you refute His Majesty? You are too rude. Yes, not wearing a mask at the fairy flower feast is a sign of respect toward His Majesty, and it is also a ritual, though not a rule. Don't you know this? Is it because you are too ugly? Which is why you always hide your appearance. In fact, we are all growing immortals. We don't really care about beauty or ugliness, as long as you reveal your true appearance. That's right, even if you have chicken skin or bird hair, we will not make a joke of you. There was someone with a bad motive who tried to compromise. Guys, please don't say this. When this mighty immortal started to be famous, His Majesty was not enthroned as the emperor yet. She is the senior of the seniors. Even the divine couple needed to give her face. Everyone should respect her as a senior. These people who continued to speak were all the female celestial beings. It seemed like they had been unhappy with Gu Shijie for a long time. Hence, everyone took turns to tease her, and wanted to make her look bad. Gu Shijie was very well conserved. She listened to them quietly. After they finished, she put her cup on the table and gently smiled. It is not that I don't want to reveal my appearance. I am considerate for the sake of the other female celestial beings. I am afraid that after you have seen my original appearance, you will feel guilty and shameful until you run away. How disappointing it is if that happens. Everyone remained silent for a moment. Fairy Yingxue sneered. Since you said so, it makes us even more curious. You should just take off the mask so that we can all see how amazing you look. Apparently, it will even make us feel shameful. She did not believe that Gu Shijie was beautiful. Everything was just an excuse. Gu Shijie put her finger on her mask. Do you really want to see what's under the mask? Are you certain you won't regret it? The female celestial beings nodded, along with the rest of the crowd. Gu Shijie gently sighed. Well. She stretched her fingers to reveal her face little by little. All eyes were gathered on Gu Zijie's face. When the mask was taken off, at the moment, almost everyone held their breath. There were only 2 words in everyone's mind. So beautiful. Yet her beauty could not be described in words. Fairy Yingxue's face was pale. She was also a beautiful woman, but compared to Gu Shijie, she became a mediocre woman that was not worth mentioning. Furthermore, Gu Gu Shijiu looked extremely young. Her delicate skin made her look like a 17 or 18-year-old girl. The Emperor Immortal's eyes were also brightened. He could not help but sigh in his heart. No wonder Shen Yanma was fascinated by her. This woman really had the looks. Her appearance was comparable to Ning Suimo's. All the female celestial beings present suddenly looked old and ordinary after being compared with Gu Shijiu. Those male celestial beings who were initially diligent in courting them had switched their attention away. Some of them who were pouring tea did not even realize that the tea had overflown. Some even accidentally poured wine on themselves. And some who peeled off the shell of shrimp had mistakenly eaten the shell instead of the shrimp. Fake. It's an illusion. It must be an illusion. Someone screamed. The words awakened the women, so those women who had not yet reached the level of a mighty immortal echoed. Yes, it must be fake. How can she look so young at such an age? Someone looked at Fairy Yingxue with hope. She was a mighty immortal, so she could tell whether it was an illusion or not. Fairy Yingxue grabbed her fists in her sleeves. She could really see through any illusion, so she understood that the current appearance of Gu Shijiu was real. She did not use any illusion magic. Chapter 2081 Fairy Yingxue calmly said, "You are really good at maintaining your youthful looks. I did not even know there is such skill in this world. Perhaps you can teach this skill to the younger generation so that they too can share of your beauty." Her words indirectly proved that Gu Zijia's appearance was authentic. The rest of the women present could only echo the words of Fairy Yingxue, saying that Gu Shijiu was indeed good at maintaining her beauty. On the other hand, the male celestial beings present did not say anything. They just could not keep their eyes off her, especially those who were still single and not married. The male celestial beings in the Saha world generally liked female celestial beings who were younger than them. There was no limit to the gap between their ages as long as the men were older. However, if they dated a female celestial being who was 1,000 years older than themselves, they would feel some pressure. They were afraid of being teased for dating someone else's mother. Based on their estimations, Gu Shijiu could be 10,000 years older than them. Therefore, although Gu Zijia's beauty attracted them, they did not have the idea of pursuing her to be their partner. Of course, there were those who were simply starstruck by her beauty and could not bring themselves to think logically at the time. Fortunately for Gu Shijiu, she was used to this kind of stares. Ever since she became the Lord, her appearance had always attracted tons of attention. It was for this reason that she decided to don the mask in the first place. At this moment, Fairy Yingxue and the other women continued to refer to her as their senior. It made her feel like laughing. At first, she did not care about the misunderstanding that she was old, but now she cared. She turned to ask Fairy Yingxue, who was waiting for Gu Shijiu to teach her the secret of maintaining a youthful look. "How old are you?" Fairy Yingxue proudly smiled. "I am 4,080 years old." She was the youngest among the female mighty immortal tonight. She was proud of that fact for sure. Gu Shijiu turned and asked the other female celestial beings, "What about you?" No matter where in the world, it was always a taboo to ask a woman about her age. It was still acceptable for a young woman to tell her age, but not for older women. However, there was a way to force them to speak the truth. "My secret of maintaining a youthful look is related to my age. If you really want a specific method, it is better for you to tell the truth." These women looked at each other before they responded. For the sake of beauty and maintaining a youthful look, they could do anything. Thus they reported their age. The oldest was already 13,000 years old, and the youngest was more than 1,600 years old. These women reported their age and waited for Gu Shijiu to share her beauty technique. Gu Shijiu could not help but sigh. "You are all so old. No wonder all of you look like a middle-aged aunt." The women were furious. It was indeed rude of her to say such things. The women's eyes almost turned red because of anger. If they did not care about her high status and skill, they would punch her face. Fairy Yingxue's pretty face also went ashen. The fists in her sleeves were clenched tightly. "Senior, aren't you older than us? May I know your age?" Gu Shijiu calmly smiled. "Based on our skill level, you really should refer to me as your senior. However, as far as age is concerned, you are all my grandparents. For example, if your age is buried in the middle of the earth, my age is still not even on the surface of the earth yet. My secret to looking youthful is being young. All the women were in shock. Even the Emperor Immortal could no longer hold back his curiosity. How old is mighty immortal Gu? Would you please enlighten us? Gu Shijio answered with calm and composure. 232 years old. Jaws dropped across the room. Gu Zijia's answer came as a shocking truth that most of them chose to deny. Liar. If you intend to lie, you should at least say a more reasonable age. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning? Exactly. No one else can achieve such level at that age. Perhaps, except for the Divine Lord. There must be a limit to what you should joke about. The sarcastic remarks continued, and the opinions were widely divided. All of the 10 masters certainly did not believe what she said. They treated her words with the contempt they thought she deserved. Scornfully, spiritual master Yu Hang decided to unmask her cowardly cheat. Your Majesty, I remember that there is a mirror kept in the palace known as the bone-reflecting mirror. It can reflect one's real age at once. He suggested to the Emperor a way to resolve this matter. The Emperor Immortal nodded with a smile. There is. Then he turned to look at Gu Shijio and asked politely, Mighty Immortal Gu, would you care to look into the mirror so that you can remove everyone's confusion at once? Gu Shijio did not even hesitate in her reply. Of course. The crowd was bewildered. They thought that she would try to find ways to reject the offer. To their surprise, she agreed to the Emperor so swiftly. Could it be that she was indeed that young? Very soon, the mirror was summoned and carried into the hall. It was a plain and simple mirror, furnished modestly. It was placed right in the middle of the hall. However, it did not reflect anyone's reflection. It showed the person's internal composition, the bare bones. To prove the power of the mirror, spiritual master Yu Hang purposely stood before the mirror for it to reveal his age. 15,200 years old. The mirror displayed the numbers. Spiritual master Yu Hang agreed to its accuracy. Mighty immortal Gu, there is still time for you to step away from this. He gave Gu Shijio a chance to change her mind and avoid regretting her decision. Gu Shijio only smiled. I will not regret this later. The eyes of the masses were fixed on her as she gracefully stood before the mirror. 232 years old. The digits slowly flashed in the mirror. The crowd's eyes opened widely in disbelief upon seeing the display. They could not believe that what she said was true. The ashen faces of the women showed how shocked they were. Before they could absorb the truth, a sudden ripple on the surface of the mirror caught their attention again. Another line of digits appeared. 11,000 years old? Another surprise caught the crowd. Gu Shijio was surprised as well. Astonished, the Emperor Immortal did not know what actually happened. Was there a glitch? Why were there 2 lines of different digits? The revelation was not over yet. There came another unexpected setback of the mirror, as the digits started to appear repeatedly, in a consecutive manner. Both lines of digits were added with a question mark at the end. It seemed like the mirror was confused too. After a while, the mirror showed some more question marks, followed by some exclamation marks. Soon, it decided to shut itself down and gave no further response. Perplexed by the oddity, the crowd turned to the Emperor Immortal for an answer. The Emperor Immortal merely shook his head. The item is a possession passed down from the previous dynasty. Its malfunction may be caused by the lack of use. The servant approached the mirror. He gave the mirror a few taps and kicks before reciting some incantations to activate it. Then he tested the mirror himself by standing in front of it to display his age. Hopeful, the Emperor Immortal called a few men forward to test the functionality of the mirror. The display was accurate now. However, when Gu Shijio went up again, the mirror, once again, broke down. The mirror had existed for tens of thousands of years, but nothing like that had ever happened before. Equally confused, the celestial messengers carried the mirror away as told by the Emperor Immortal. All eyes gathered on Gu Shijio. How old was the mighty immortal Gu? Why did the mirror go haywire every time she stepped before it? The same questions lingered on everyone's mind. Gu Shijie was even more confused than anybody else. Astonished by the numbers, she clearly remembered that her age was only a little over 200 years. Something was wrong with the numbers that declared her to be 11,000 years old. Fueled by their anger, the women shot out a stream of abusive remarks at her. Some accused her of taking advantage of her powerful kung fu, saying that she had cast some spell on the mirror to hide her real age. Some said that she could actually be more than 11,000 years old, and that she chose to disregard the courtesy of how people her age should behave, all because she wanted to fit in with the young and youthful. The most vicious remark came from Fairy Yingxue. As a senior at the age of 11,000, you are not considered that old. Why did you try so hard to conceal your age? Oh, I know why. There are rumors about you, saying that you actually fancy the young prince. Did you try so hard to conceal your age? All because you were worried that he would mind the age gap? Is that why you try to pass yourself off, by changing your age to 200 years? Nonsense. Nonsense. A voice of a child emerged from the sleeves of Gu Shijie. Soon, the muscle made its entrance into the hall. A child could be seen standing between shells. His tiny face was entirely flushed with indignation. My master is only 232 years old. Millions of lives from the mortal world can be her proof. 11,000 years old? There must be something wrong with the mirror, and perhaps even with you. You must be at least 4,000 years old by now. Are you dumb enough to trust the mirror, old woman? The celestial beings were in utter surprise. The celestial beings of the Saha world were all civilized with good manners. None of them had ever spoken as directly and rudely as the muscle just did. Fairy Yingxue was embarrassed by the muscle's offensively and impolite remark, but was too reluctant to argue with a mere muscle. Scornfully she answered, "The fairy floral feast is a sacred event. Why did you smuggle your majestic being here?" "Exactly, it is against the rules." A voice chimed in immediately. "It is a violation." Smilingly, Gu Shijie answered only to the Emperor Immortal. "Your Majesty, I remember clearly that I am allowed to bring 2 friends along." The Emperor Immortal agreed with a nod. "I had indeed allowed that, but I haven't seen your friends anywhere." "My friend is here." Gu Shijie cleared his confusion by pointing at the muscle. The muscle flung back its head and seemed very proud. It was touched by her kind gesture, for she regarded it as a friend. The crowd was once again speechless. In their eyes, there was a clear distinction between celestial and majestic beings. The majestic beings were animals, so they should never be mentioned in the same breath with the celestial beings, for one could never equate an animal as a friend. Mighty Immortal Gu was indeed different. The celestial immortal heaved a helpless sigh. "Where is your other friend?" he asked. "I am here." Another fluff rolled out from Gu Zijie's sleeves. It was Lu Wu. It soon spread all of its 9 tails with pride, like a peacock flaunting its bright plumage. "My master is only 232 years old. When she took me under her care, she was only 14 years old. I have been there throughout the years to witness her growth. Your vicious remarks have only proven your jealousy. You are all jealous about how excellent she really is. Since you have failed to find your advantage in response to her strength, you try to make yourself feel better by disclaiming her age. What you fail to notice is that you are all old women as compared to my master." The women were perplexed. The majestic beings surprised the crowd, for they had been more and more outspoken in their criticisms. Moreover, they managed to convey the very truth. Fairy Yingxue was thoroughly embarrassed. "I can see that you have painstakingly tried to conceal your age by telling lies to your majestic beings. It is a shame that the bone-reflecting mirror has revealed your true self. There is no way you can hide your age anymore. It is ridiculous for a woman of your age to fancy the young prince. Aren't you worried that you will end up being a laughingstock across all 3 worlds?" "Nonsense. My master has never fancied the young prince. She only said those things in a fit of rage, caused by the dumb, old men who have clearly outlived their usefulness." Chapter 2084. My master is here to make things clear, once and for all. The Emperor Immortal can be her proof. The muscle scowled at Fairy Yingxue. before giving the emperor the final call. All eyes were on the emperor immortal. About that, I can be her proof. Mighty Immortal Gu is here to solve the conflicts ensued from this misunderstanding. Mighty Immortal Gu came to visit and explain everything to me. It is all a misunderstanding. What she has for Prince Nianma is only restricted to the love and respect of what a senior should have for her junior, not love between a man and a woman. She only approached Prince Nianma because of her mission assigned by the heavenly law. She was hoping to assist the prince in his progress to become a mighty immortal. The crowd was astonished. They certainly did not expect the answer. Spiritual Master Yu Hang took the note with a grain of salt. Why didn't Mighty Immortal Gu make herself clear before? Gu Shijiu answered scornfully. Why should I simply tell anyone about the heavenly orders given to me? Spiritual Master Yu Hang was at a loss for words. Why did you choose to state the fact now? Fairy Yingxue was searching for a loophole. It is all because my master does not wish to continue having a misunderstanding with all of you old ladies. She does not wish to be wronged any longer. Fairy Yingxue was clearly frustrated by being called old. Why should she blame anyone for a misunderstanding that is caused by her own doing? She disregards her age to fit in with the young. If she had not done so, Prince Nianma would not lose his head over the old woman. Gu Shijiu could not help but feel a sense of irritation about Fairy Yingxue. She refused to lower herself to the same level as the fairy and argue over the trivial. Her fingers twitched a little, but before she could cast any spell, a voice interrupted her. When did I become the topic of discussion? Pleasant to the ear, the voice lingered in the air. Gu Shijiu recognized that voice. Di Fui was here. She looked up and saw Di Fui riding on the back of Bai Zhe. He was dressed entirely in faded green robes. Icily he eyed the crowd with nonchalance. Gu Shijiu had not seen him for the past 2 weeks, so his sudden emergence came as an astonishment to her. The Emperor Immortal had told her that Prince Nianma was also invited for the celestial flower party, but the invitation was rejected. He made himself clear about his absence. Gu Shijiu was relieved. The embarrassment would not be difficult for him to bear in his absence, so she certainly did not wish to see him at the event. Surprisingly, he showed up. Most of the people had never seen him. Stunned by his grace and elegance, everyone's jaw dropped in disbelief. Fixedly, they stared at the unexpected guest. The Emperor Immortal realized Di Fui's identity first, as he had heard from the 4 great guardians about the existence of Bai Zhe, the divine being. There was no doubt in his mind when he saw the two together. He rose and greeted courteously, Prince Nianma. The shocking effect rippled across the entire hall. They could not believe that the unexpected guest was actually Prince Nianma. Prince Nianma's matured look certainly did not match his age. Utterly confused, they could not believe their eyes, but they were confident that the Emperor Immortal would not falsely recognize the prince. Also, Bai Zhe would not let anyone else ride it. After the sudden revelation, all of them finally kneeled. Prince Nianma. Everyone kneeled, except 13 people. 10 were the masters. 1 was Gu Shijiu. 1 was the Emperor Immortal, who was standing half-bowed. The other one was a young mighty immortal. Obviously, the young mighty immortal could not process what he saw. Mr. Fui. The man's voice was especially loud in a room of complete silence. Everyone could hear him clearly. Therefore, all of them were stunned momentarily by yet another surprise announcement. After all, Mr. Fui was a widely known man in the Saha world. No one had expected that Mr. Fui and Prince Nianma would be the same man. The young man who spoke out knew him personally, for they had fought many monsters together. He was a friend. Completely absorbed in the shocking truth, he had truly forgotten to kneel before the prince. When he finally reacted, many had already risen. Before he could kneel, Di Fui immediately held him back. Brother Jianan, there is no need for the courtesy. Brother Jianan did not kneel, but he did not know what to feel. There was a mixture of feelings, for he seemed proud and yet disappointed at the same time. When they met, Di Fui was only a golden immortal while he was already a mighty immortal, so he did not feel very hopeful about what Di Fui could achieve. After their many adventures together, He realized that Di Fui was quite experienced in strategic planning and dealing with many affairs. Although his kung fu was the only advantage he had over Di Fui was the one who saved his life before. As they spent more time together, Jianan slowly became Di Fui's younger brother. He thought that Mr. Fui would at least be 1,000 to 2,000 years old. To his surprise, his company turned out to be Prince Nianma, who was only 6 years old. Di Fui's presence had definitely created a stir. The Emperor Immortal invited him to be seated at the top priority seat. His status was even nobler than the Emperor Immortal, so there was nothing unreasonable about this gesture. As a distinguished guest, Gu Shizhou was seated fairly close to him. Di Fui greeted Gu Shizhou smilingly as if she was a friend. "Mighty Immortal Gu, how are you?" His charming smile and bright eyes were very attractive. When he looked at her, she felt as if the warmth of spring had just blessed her. Surprised by his warm greeting, she answered him with a smile. "I hope you are doing well, Prince Nianma." Di Fui's eyes suddenly darkened while the smile on his face faded. Swiftly, he poured a cup of tea and flickered it across to Gu Shizhou with a spell. "I would like to thank you for your help in my progress, mighty immortal Gu. I want to propose a toast to you." The cup of tea circled for a few rounds in the air, but never spilled. Slowly, but steadily it moved towards Gu Shizhou. With the cup in her hand, Gu Shizhou took a sip and responded politely, "You are welcome." After a brief exchange of pleasantries, the crowd was somewhat convinced that they were not a couple. They stood gazing blankly at one another. They did not believe Gu Zijia's clarification back then, but upon seeing their unaccustomed interaction, they were more or less convinced now. The gossips were merely rumors. Di Fui looked at the faces of the people, but only Fairy Yingxue caught his attention. "My old senior, about the man who was entranced by her beauty, who did you mean exactly?" He called her his old senior. Fairy Yingxue's face went pale. She especially hated it when people described her as old, for she did not look her age at all. However, he was Shen Nianma, who was only 6 years old. There was nothing wrong from his standpoint. She coughed. "My prince, I should not be called an old senior. As compared to your parents, I am merely a junior. Who do you think you are? How dare you compare yourself to the divine couple?" Di Fui's smile disappeared instantly. He was irritated by her ignorance. Momentarily, Fairy Yingxue was at a loss for words. Her face turned even paler as she stammered. I did not mean it that way." All she wanted to say was that she was only a junior as compared to the divine couple, and that she was closer to the generation of Shen Nianma, so she certainly was not entitled to be called as an old senior. Before she could finish her sentence, Di Fui had stepped in and interrupted her. "What did you mean then? Don't you think that you do not even deserve to be called as a junior of the Divine Lord?" Fairy Yingxue did not know how to defend herself anymore. It was true that she was nothing compared to the Divine Lord. Someone who was not even qualified to be the Divine Lord's servant. The Divine Lord would have never even heard of her name. "Prince Nianma, it was my mistake. I should not have mentioned my name in the same breath as the Divine Lord. You have finally realized your worth. Do you think that you can put yourself on par with me then?" I dare not. If so, who do you think you are to make comments on my personal affair?" At this point, Di Fui's expression was serious, and he was clearly asserting his authority. Fairy Yingxue said nothing more. She kneeled and apologized to him. "I know that I have made a terrible mistake. Please forgive me, my prince." Completely ignoring her presence, Di Fui gently swirled the tea leaves in his cup. Then he looked at the Emperor Immortal with a tight smile. "Your Highness, I remember clearly that there is a law, stating that if any celestial being is found guilty of distorting facts and giving a false account about the Emperor Immortal, he or she shall be punished by having their tongue removed. Therefore, I could not help but wonder about the punishment that should be placed upon anyone who talks bad about me. The Emperor Immortal was not aware of such a punishment." About that. Nonchalantly, Di Fui took a sip of his tea, then placed it back gently onto the table. "Of course, if you think that my status is merely insignificant, negligible enough to be slandered by anyone, you may disregard my previous request." He had put the Emperor Immortal into a difficult position. Anxiously, the Emperor Immortal gave Di Fui a complicated look. He had always thought that Shen Yinma was only a child. Foolishly, he thought that it would be easy to persuade a child. To his utter surprise, he turned out to be a formidable child. His words were as sharp as a razor. Di Fui was the son of the Divine Lord, and this position was even nobler than the Emperor Immortal's. If one chose to slander him, the punishment should be severer. Before the Emperor Immortal took the throne, Fairy Yingxue was a close friend of his. Taking advantage of their friendship, Fairy Yingxue gradually became more outspoken. If anything or anyone displeased her, she was not afraid to voice out her criticism. Today was finally the day she learned her lesson from Di Fui. The Emperor Immortal wanted to defend for her, but Di Fui intimidated him. From the look in his eyes, Di Fui somewhat resembled his father, the Divine Lord. He knew very well that the prince was indeed offended, sparing no chance for Fairy Yingxue. Her punishment would serve as a warning to others. The Emperor Immortal did not want to offend anyone from Fantian Palace, so he had to order for the punishment of Fairy Yingxue. In addition to having her tongue removed, she would be punished with a thunder strike as well. Fairy Yingxue did not see this coming. Eagerly, she bowed before the Emperor repeatedly to beg for her mercy. In her defense, other celestial beings bowed as well. Their opinions were generally centered about the celestial flower party, saying that it would not be appropriate to spill blood on such an important day. The Emperor Immortal fixed his eyes on Di Fui, waiting for his response. Di Fui smiled but said nothing. He only watched quietly as all of them bowed before the Emperor. Intuitively, the Emperor Immortal could not help but think that the celestial beings were a little dumb. They should not be bowing before the Emperor, for he was not the one that they had offended. He pitied Fairy Yingxue. As a last resort, he directed an audio message to her, telling her to beg for mercy from Di Fui instead. Enlightened, Fairy Yingxue quickly turned to Di Fui and begged for mercy. The others followed suit. After a while, Di Fui finally answered, "Your Highness, should you amend the law, only because the offenders keep begging for mercy?" The Emperor Immortal knew that he would respond as such. It was impossible to change the law. He heaved a sigh of helplessness, for there was nothing he could do but to send Fairy Yingxue away for her punishment. Fairy Yingxue collapsed at the final decision. She was unable to improve the situation. The others shut their mouths like a clam. There were a few more who were involved in the gossips. Seeing the punishment made them regret their mistakes. Immediately, they took a few steps to the back to look as if they were never there. Gu Shizhou watched quietly as the entire incident unfolded. Deep down, she was impressed by Di Fui's approach. The child was born to be a politician. Hence, the warning served the crowd very well. From now on, no one in the Saha world dared to speak of him in malice, or gossip about him. Gu Shizhou could not keep her eyes off him. When Di Fui turned around, their eyes met. With a throb in her heart, she decided to smile at him. Expressionless, Di Fui looked away. He never looked at her again. Gu Shizhou felt as though she had been shunned disdainfully. It seemed that he was still mad at her. The Muscle and Lu Wu were extremely delighted by the punishment of Fairy Yingxue. The Muscle used to be afraid of Di Fui. However, the intimidation had just been replaced by a sense of admiration. It directed an audio message to Gu Shizhou to express its amusement. "Master, did he just get revenge for you? He is so cool. I like him. Master, I think that he is into you. Should you just marry him?" Gu Shizhou replied briefly, "Shut up." The Muscle dared not dwell on the topic, but it was still curious about another thing. "Master, what do you think is wrong with the lousy mirror? You are only 232 years old. Why were there two different lines of digits? What about the one that said 11,000 years? Gu Shizhou sighed. How would I know? She was equally bewildered. All of a sudden, Di Fui asked the Emperor Immortal, Your Highness, I noticed an argument earlier. What were you discussing about just now? Frankly, the Emperor Immortal told Di Fui everything. Seemingly unconvinced, Di Fui questioned, I have found it to be a little unbelievable. Can you please show me the mirror? The Emperor Immortal dared not deny his request. Quickly, he summoned his men to carry the mirror to the hall. Di Fui circled the mirror in bewilderment. Then he placed his hand on the surface of the mirror and mumbled. It does not seem to have deteriorated. Why should there be any glitch at all? The bone-reflecting mirror then shook vigorously before displaying 3 exclamation marks on its surface. Gu Shijie was surprised by the mirror's ability to comprehend human speech. Di Fui looked at the 3 exclamation marks and was curious. Are you bitter? What was wrong earlier when you displayed the different numbers? If it was not about your deterioration, could it be an honest mistake of yours? The mirror had acquired a certain level of spiritual sagacity, but it could not express itself verbally. To express its dissatisfaction, it displayed yet another 4 exclamation marks in a vigorous attempt. The exclamation marks were bold to express itself fully. Di Fui smiled. Are you not satisfied? Then he took a step to stand in front of the mirror. Tell me my age. The exclamation marks disappeared. With a gentle shake, the mirror shone with a brief flash of light, covering Di Fui in its halo-like light like what it did to everyone else. A brief moment later, a number showed up. 6 years old. The number was added with an exclamation mark to show how bewildered the mirror actually was. Anyway, what it displayed was true. There was nothing wrong. Di Fui thus threw Gu Shijie a look. Other guests were relieved. Apparently, they assumed that Gu Shijie was lying. She must be embarrassed by the public revelation of her lies. Gu Shijie was not surprised by the outcome. She thought that the mirror must have something against her, for letting her suffer a grievous wrong with no hope of vengeance. All right, I see that the mirror is not malfunctioned. About what happened just now. Before Di Fui summed up the incident, the mirror started to shake again. Soon another number appeared, 500 years old. Di Fui was surprised. The crowd went wild in disbelief, and Gu Shijie was equally confused. Chapter 2088. The mirror kept shaking and trembling while displaying 2 different sets of numbers at random. The glitch went on for a while before the mirror stopped flickering with numerous question marks on its display. Then it shut itself down. The mirror was indeed having a breakdown. All eyes were on Di Fui, waiting for an answer. His fingers knocked gently on the mirror to find out what was wrong. Suddenly, a thought came to his mind. Did you mean that my physical age is 6 years old, but the spiritual power in my body has the experience of over 500 years? The mirror did not answer. If I am right, answer me with an exclamation mark. If I am wrong, show me a question mark instead. Come, answer my first question. The mirror trembled a little before displaying an exclamation mark. Di Fui was satisfied with its response. When mighty immortal Gu stood before you, there were 2 displays of different numbers. Did you mean that her physical age was 232 years old, but her spiritual power was the accumulation of strength for about 11,000 years? The mirror gave 3 exclamation marks in response. Finally, there was someone who understood it. The crowd was amazed. They had not thought about that at all. Why didn't the mirror show 2 different numbers for everyone else? Someone had to ask the critical question. Di Fui gave the man a brief look before dismissing his question. Most of you have your age well attached with the strength of your spiritual power, so you did not receive 2 different numbers. The mirror will only break down when the gap is too large. The explanation was reasonable. The crowd was satisfied with his findings. After all, the mirror had admitted it. Many curious eyes turned to Gu Shijie, for they could not believe how young she really was. At her tender age, she already had the spiritual power that would take 11,000 years to accumulate. It was all but a miracle. As a comparison, she was even stronger than the Divine Lord. The men looked at her in a different light now. They certainly had not expected that she would be so young. She was younger than any one of them. Back in the days, even the great devil was not as strong. It was indeed a miracle. She was the next woman who had achieved the impossible after Ning Xiuama, the great devil. The muscle was delighted. Like I said, my master is only 232 years old, but none of you believed it. All of you have embarrassed yourselves. It clapped the floor joyfully as if celebrating. Then it ran across the hall to get close to Di Fui. My prince, thank you for standing up for my master. Lu Wu wagged its tails at Di Fui and exclaimed, the prince has always been very kind to my master. Smilingly, Di Fui answered their joyful words. I am only telling the truth. I did not do anything for the unbiased benefit of your master. He looked at Gu Shizhou fixedly, and their eyes met again. I would like to thank you regardless, she expressed her gratitude with a smile. Mighty immortal Gu, you are welcome, Di Fui answered with composure. She could tell that he was trying to distance himself. All 10 masters did not know what to feel about the truth. They had not expected the arrogant, mysterious ghost face, which had been giving them a hard time, to be so young. They thought that Gu Shizhou would be at least tens of thousands of years old, at least to be on par with the Divine Lord. Finally, they realized that she was only a maiden. Moreover, she was a maiden of great talents. In that case, it would not be a bad thing for her to be in love with Prince Nianma. In fact, they would be a great couple. If the Divine Lord had known about it, he would not have any objection. Nonetheless, the masters seemed to have ruined the perfect match. The lady had made herself clear that it was all but a mission. Also, Prince Nianma seemed to have distanced himself from her. Did they argue? In a swift attempt to make them a match, spiritual master Yu Hang confessed abruptly. Nianma, it was my mistake. I concluded finding out more about her. I have wronged Miss Gu in many ways. Now that I see that she is a great lady, Gu Shizhou frowned at his sudden words of praise, but Di Fui interrupted him before he could finish. Miss Gu is indeed a great woman, a woman of her words. I admire her capability and that is all. Spiritual Master Yu Hang was at a loss for words. Gu Shizhou did not comment either. Di Fui had just got rid of the gossips that had been haunting her for so long. She was relieved but not entirely comfortable. Before giving Spiritual Master Yu Hang another chance to speak, Di Fui suddenly looked up and raised his voice. Ling Er, you may come down here. How long do you plan to hide up there? Who was Ling Er? Gu Shizhou looked up to the sky, and so did everyone else. A fluffy cloud slowly split, revealing the figure of all the ascended celestial beings would have their memories erased. The custom remained, even with the new emperor. Hence, it was expected that Ling Er would forget about her past. Many in the crowd were curious about how Gu Shizhou would react to the young lady. After all, she had been the subject of their gossips for the longest of time. Gu Shizhou had been sitting quietly with a cup of tea in her hand. She watched smilingly as he slowly introduced the young lady to the guests. They did not see anything wrong with her nonchalance. Di Fui walked Ling Er around and stood in front of Gu Shizhou. Ling Er, this is mighty immortal Gu. Her kung fu is extraordinary. If you have anything that you do not understand, you can always ask her. I respect her as my own master. Ling Er greeted Gu Shizhou respectfully. Mighty immortal Gu. Gu Shizhou held her up and answered politely. Ling Er, there is no need to be so courteous. You are a friend of Nianma, so I will cons. Suddenly, she tripped and almost bumped into Di Fui, who was walking steadily next to her. He quickly gave her a hand and was concerned about her well-being. Be careful where you walk, he said. I know. They then summoned their rides, respectively. Di Fui took a ride on Baize and Jing Ling Er on the Silver Dragon. Swiftly, they flew into the air and disappeared from sight. I never knew that Prince Nianma was such a gentleman to a lady. The girl is very lucky. It looks like Prince Nianma really fancies her. I have heard that Prince Nianma is only 6 years old. Even though he looks like a grown-up. He is too young to be with a girl right now, isn't he? You know nothing. In fact, Prince Nianma is the son of the Divine Lord and Great Devil. I know that the Divine Lord turned into an adult at the mere age of 1. As we can see, Prince Nianma is already a grown-up, with the power equivalent to a golden immortal. There should not be any problem for him to get married at this age. The wide discussion carried on into the evening. No one was concerned about Gu Shizhou anymore. Only the Emperor Immortal cared to give her a few glances. All of a sudden, a dialogue appeared in her head. Gu Shijiu sat there quietly reminiscing. Baby, you are still a child. You should not be so perverted. Don't call me your baby. If you think that I am a child, why do you keep following me? I like little girls. Pervert. The conversation sprung out in her head out of nowhere. She knew very well that it was a dialogue that she once had with Huang Tu. It seems that back then Huang Tu used to like little girls too. In fact, a girl's vivacity and high spirits would certainly charm any men. Di Fui was living proof of that, as Jing Ling Er was obviously a very lively girl. Did she used to be a lively, charming girl? Gu Shijiu tried to recall her behavior in recent years. Apparently, she was convinced that she was not that sort of happy and active girl. She was a rather cold, arrogant woman who showed no expression on her face. There were seldom times that she would misbehave. Ever since she started her career as an assassin, her naivety was gone for good. She grabbed the cup beside and took a quick sip, without noticing how hot the tea was. Her tongue was burned, so she could not help but cough. A glass of juice was handed to her. Come, take a sip of it. Gu Shijiu accepted the glass and took another sip. The water tasted sweet and icy, which made her burnt tongue feel more comfortable. Thank you, Your Highness. She appreciated his kind gesture. Mighty Immortal Gu, you are so welcome. The Emperor Immortal answered smilingly. How do you feel now? Is the burn very serious? It is fine. The burn was nothing to Gu Shijiu. She used a tiny portion of her spiritual power to treat the burned area. Very soon, the burning sensation went away. Shijiu, what are the plans that you have for your future? The Emperor Immortal was keen to know what Gu Shijiu intended to do. With a smile he added, since you are not that old, would you mind if I called you by your name? Gu Shijiu certainly would not mind it at all. Your Highness, you certainly can. Also, now that I have fulfilled your requests, when will you release General Long? Don't worry. I have set him free. I can safely assume that he is already on his way home. You will see him on your way back. Gu Shijiu heaved a sigh of relief. What about his crime? He is one of my men, so I surely know that he is not up to anything rebellious. I have exonerated him from the crime. I see. So you have used him to lure me here. I apologize, the Emperor Immortal admitted without hesitating. Shijiu, I did not know you well before, so I was worried that you might take advantage of Prince Nianma. Thus, I had to resort to such an uncanny move. Please pardon my mistake. Here, I shall punish myself with 3 glasses of wine to express my apology. The Emperor was a straightforward man. Gu Shijiu admired his frankness, so she accepted his apology right away. Having resolved the matter with long sigh, Gu Shijiu suddenly thought about Yun Yanli. He used to be a man of great talent with a bold vision. Unfortunately, it was not his era. Gu Shijiu took another 2 glasses of wine before announcing her departure. Shijiu, I would like to discuss some affairs with you personally. Please proceed to my study room when the celestial flower party comes to an end. Gu Shijiu joked with a tight smile. Are you trying to set me up? The Emperor Immortal could not hold back his amusement. I dare not. They continued to chat casually for a while. Soon, Gu Shijiu realized that the Emperor was a quick, definite man who was bold enough to do something and accept the consequence of his actions, which was a trait that they commonly shared. She used to treat the Emperor Immortal like a stranger. Now, she realized that she could actually keep him as a friend. His undisguised character explained why the Divine Lord would assist him on his quest to the throne back then. The two had a couple more drinks, and suddenly, the Emperor Immortal looked at her and sighed. Shijiu, you are so skilled in concealing your emotions and appearance. Actually, you look like someone I know. Hesitantly, Gu Shijiu continued. Like who? The great devil, Ning Xuema, the mother of Nianmo. A sudden realization hit her. Did Nianmo fall for her because of his issues with his mother? Before she could begin to contemplate such a possibility, the ground started to shake violently. Gu Shijiu was utterly surprised. It was a massive earthquake. Never had she expected that the 9th heaven would ever encounter such a natural disaster. Moreover, it was a rare earthquake with an exceptionally large scale of damage. From a scale of 1 to 10, the intensity of the earthquake could easily be at 10. Many buildings were flattened. The rosy clouds were completely disarranged like a complete mess. It felt as though the sky was about to collapse. Many of guests could barely stand steadily. The earthquake came without warnings, so the people were caught unprepared. Hectically, the servants crawled on the floor, for they could barely hold themselves together. The guests dispersed in a mess, like falling leaves in a strong breeze. There was something strange about the earthquake. It was as if there was a disruption in the force of gravity. The celestial beings had completely lost their ability to fly. They could only run. As the ground was falling apart, it was more convenient to fly. However, they could only run. Gu Shijiu joined them soon enough. On her way, she even used her extraordinary kung fu to rescue 1 or 2 unfortunate servants who had so carelessly fallen into the cracks. While she was running, a pitch-black vortex suddenly emerged on the ground. It came without warning, right under her feet. Caught in the turbulence with nowhere to run, the sudden emergence of darkness cloaked her vision as she slowly fell into the whirlpool. The Muscle and Lu Wu were running along with her, not too far behind. When they saw the black vortex, it was already too late for them to warn her. In the blink of an eye, their master had disappeared into the whirlpool. "My prince, may I return to my usual form?" Jing Ling'er asked for Di Fui's permission hesitantly. Di Fui threw her a look before answering. "You look quite adorable like this." Jing Ling'er scratched her head in complete disapproval. Bai Zhe was amazed by the transformation as well. "Flying serpent, you are truly capable of turning yourself into a beautiful woman. Like I said, your human form is very feminine. You should see the look on their faces the moment you landed in the hall. Speak no more of it." Jing Ling'er responded angrily. Then she turned to look at Di Fui. "My prince, I think the drama has ended." Di Fui stared blankly at the distant sky and answered, "Yes, it has come to an end." She was not bothered at all. Bai Zhe and Jing Ling'er looked at each other in disappointment. "My prince, should you go back and check out the scene?" Bai Zhe offered. Di Fui let out a sarcastic laugh. "It is unnecessary. I shall carry on, with or without her. In fact, I do not wish to see her anymore. Let's go." Bai Zhe and the flying serpent looked at each other blankly. In unison, they then agreed to leave. All of a sudden, they heard loud crashing sounds coming from the distance. They looked back, only to realize that numerous buildings had collapsed. What happened? The flying serpent looked surprised. Is that an earthquake? The ninth heaven was similar to the mundane world. Occasionally earthquakes happened. However, the damage was not always massive. At most, the buildings would be damaged. It could barely do any harm to the immortals, as they were all capable of flying. Di Fui was looking in the direction of the hall. Meanwhile, the flying serpent suddenly remembered that its power was tied. Quickly, it handed its hands over to Bai Zhe and demanded, "Please disarm the spell." To transform into a young lady, Bai Zhe had to suppress most of the flying serpent's spiritual power. It needed to act like a lady whose spiritual power was only at the level of golden immortal. Bai Zhe had to disarm the seal for the flying serpent to return to its original form. After all, it had no intention to keep its current appearance. Unexpectedly, Bai Zhe completely ignored its request. Blankly, it stared at the direction of the hall as well and murmured, "Something is not right." The flying serpent was getting impatient. "Hey, what is wrong? It is merely an earthquake, nothing more. Please disarm the spell." Normally, an earthquake will affect a fairly wide area. As you can see, we are only dozens of miles away from the center of the quake, but the surrounding clouds remain unaffected. Bai Zhe expressed its concerns. "From the scale of the destruction, I can tell that the earthquake must have been a massive one. Why didn't we feel any of it?" The flying serpent finally realized. If that is not an earthquake, what else can it be? Is the place under attack? It does not seem like it either. Bai Zhe had lived long enough to be the most knowledgeable one amongst the 8 mythological beasts. The catastrophe resembled the effects of an earthquake, but they were not entirely the same. Earthquakes happened from time to time, but the catastrophe was a very rare event. probably once in tens of thousands of years. Not many had lived long enough to witness it. The Divine Lord had once told Bai Zhe about the catastrophe. It resembled an earthquake, with a massive destructive force enough to damage anything on the surface. Once trapped, one would lose the ability to fly as well. The only way to escape was to run. No one was safe, even the mighty immortals. There were many causes for the catastrophe, according to the Divine Lord. It would most probably be caused by the betrayal of a heavenly secret, which was supposed to be kept confidential at all times. Di Fui had never experienced a catastrophe, but he had read about it from a book given to him by the Divine Lord. He only had a glance on the subject and was not really concerned about it. Bai Zhe's explanation served as a reminder to him. It made him realize that something must have gone wrong. The one who had betrayed the heavenly secret seemed to be Gu Shijiu. Without thinking of his own safety, he quickly sprung into action. "Let's go and have a look," he told Bai Zhe. Bai Zhe turned and rushed to the hall at full speed. It was the fastest it had ever traveled. The catastrophe did not last long, only about half a minute. However, it was extremely disastrous. Most of the buildings were destroyed. The hall, which was filled with fragrance and celestial sagacity in the air, turned into a complete mess. Cracks randomly crisscrossed the ground. All the immortals were in a fluster. Their hair was in a mess, and their clothes were unkempt and torn. Most of them were injured, some severer than others. When Di Fui arrived, the hall was no longer intact. Dust filled the air, blotting out the sky and the sun. In the dusty gloom, the immortals peered from behind dark smokes. Di Fui rushed straight into the mess. Most of the immortals had yet to recover from the fright, so they did not pay any attention to him. Di Fui went around the destruction site very quickly. The woman in a fiery red dress was all he was looking for. Gu Zijia's exquisite red dress had caught his full attention. She looked so beautiful. He had a hard time trying to keep his eyes away from her. However, he failed to see her anywhere. She was nowhere to be seen. He and Bai Zhe searched for her in different directions. They had circled the area twice, but they still could not locate her. Instead, they found the muscle and Lu Wu, running around frantically. The two pets were acting a little strange. There they stood at the cracks, desperately trying to dig into it. Both of their faces were covered in dirt. Carelessly, Lu Wu did not notice that Di Fui was coming and bumped straight into him. He took a grasp of its tails and anxiously asked, "Where is your master?" "She is gone. Master is gone." Lu Wu's skin crept at the scary realization of her disappearance. Its eyes were moist with tears. "What do you mean that she is gone? Explain yourself properly." Lu Wu told him briefly about the incident. As it recalled what had happened, it got even more emotional. "Did your master fall into the cracks?" The flying serpent approached them from behind and suggested abruptly, "My prince, did she escape using ground drilling?" "Impossible. Master will never abandon us here." Lu Wu was obviously offended. It stared at the flying serpent with angry eyes, which was still in its human form as Jingling Air. The more Lu Wu looked at her, the more it disliked her. It wanted so much to scratch her limbs. Di Fui did not answer. Instead, he pulled Lu Wu's tails, hoping that it would guide him. "Take me to where she was last seen." Lu Wu obliged and took him to the place where she disappeared. The place looked ordinary without any cracks at all. It looked as if the earthquake had never happened. "This is the place." A vortex appeared out of nowhere and pulled Master into the whirlpool. We wanted to go along, but the vortex disappeared right before we could rush into it. The muscle finally reunited with them. It rushed forward and saw Di Fui, along with the flying serpent by his side. "My prince, what are you two lovebirds doing here? Do you have anything to do with my master?" Di Fui completely ignored it. Instead, he took the time to search the place. Desperately, he even went underground with ground drilling just to make sure she was not there. The flying serpent remained quiet for the longest time. Di Fui had not allowed it to reveal its identity, so it could only play the role of Jingling Air at the moment. It shivered a little when the muscle acknowledged them as lovebirds, but it was not allowed to comment anything. The flying serpent watched as its master went into a frantic search. His ghastly pallor clearly showed how panicked he was. He did not care about any of the muscle's sarcasm. He probably did not even hear it, for all his attention was caught in the search. Gu Shijiu had disappeared. Di Fui had dived into all of the cracks but failed to find any trace of hers. No one had seen her, not even the Emperor Immortal. Like every other immortal, the Emperor Immortal was trapped, as he too lost his ability to fly. He was injured, but it was not serious. He managed to keep himself safe with his kung fu. After the catastrophe, he soon gathered the remaining immortals to make a count on the death toll. The damage was very severe. A few servants and 2 guests slipped into the lava, buried deep within the depths of the crack. They were witnessed to be screaming and shouting in pain before their bodies were consumed entirely in the hot, molten rock. The underground lava in the 9th heaven was not the same as the mundane world. It contained the true fire of Samadhi. The heat was very intense, strong enough to burn off the skin of a mighty immortal. My prince, Miss Gu's power is comparable to the strength of a great deity. Even if she had fallen into the lava, she would be able to survive. Perhaps she had already escaped. Perhaps she has already escaped to a safer place. As you know, the lava is continuously flowing. Perhaps she has been brought to another place by the stream. We have to keep looking. Bai Zhe tried to sound hopeful. That is right. God always blesses the good. I am sure that she will remain unharmed. I will send more men in the search as well. The Emperor Immortal agreed. He quietly observed Jingling Air, who had been following Di Fui everywhere. Based on his observation, it was clear that the prince seemed to be really in love with Miss Gu. Earlier, he did well to disguise his feelings for her. However, in the current emergency, he finally revealed himself for what he was. His feelings were completely unmasked. As for Miss Gu, she did not seem to treat him completely as a child. She must have fallen for him, even though she did not care to admit it rationally. With these revelations, the Emperor Immortal would love to know how things would turn out for both of them. But where did Miss Gu go? He did not believe that she was gone for good. No one believed so. They thought that she would reappear in no time, but it did not happen. 3 days went by. Another 5 days passed. Soon 2 weeks flew by. Then a month. There was no news. It was as if she had disappeared entirely from the world. Di Fui tried to look for everywhere. In a frenzied hurry, he did not sleep or even rest. As time ticked by, he slowly grew less hopeful about her survival. He had looked into many places and even visited Long Sai. The 4 great guardians had brutally tortured Long Sai while he was detained. His injuries were quite severe, making it difficult for him even to leave his bed. Upon hearing about Gu Zijia's disappearance, he bore the pain and joined the search as well. He speculated, has Shijiu gone back to the lower bound? After all, her 6-month stay in the upper bound is coming to its expiration. The muscle dismissed his idea. Impossible. Master will never abandon Lu Wu and I. Also, my master has to ride the fiery bird in order to return to the lower bound, via the sky bridging tree. It is not possible that the vortex would send her back. Long Sai did not comment any further. Bai Zhe recalled about the pillar at the peak of the 9th heaven, which officially recorded all the names of the people that had achieved a middle immortal status and above. Their names would be automatically displayed on the pillar. If he or she died, the name would be wiped off automatically as well. Before it could finish explaining itself, Di Fui was already gone. As soon as it got to the pillar, Bai Zhe regretted its decision immediately. There were tens of thousands of names on the pillar. What frustrated it more was the randomness of the display. The names would move and switch places from time to time. Searching for one name in the sea of names was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Furthermore, Bai Zhe was not even sure if her name was there. To begin with, Di Fui circled the pillar while carefully studying every name that flashed before his eyes. He only cared about her name. Bai Zhe persuaded him. My prince, failure to find her name does not necessarily mean that she is dead. After all, she is not originally a member of the Saha world. It is possible that her name was never here. After 3 days of painstaking search, He finally found her name in a very hidden corner. The search finally ended, right before dusk. Baizé was deeply relieved by the discovery of her name. They found her name on the pillar, proving that she was still alive. Surprisingly, her name was rather dim, almost indistinct from the natural color of the pillar. Amongst the golden names that floated by, one would require extremely good eyesight to distinguish her name from the sea of glistening characters. Baizé thought that its eyesight was good, but after 3 days of tireless search, its vision became blurred. Images started to overlap, screwing up its eyes. Although the prince's kung fu was not as good as Baizé's, his eyes were still in good condition. Baizé looked at Difui, who had obviously lost some weight after the frantic search over the past 2 weeks. "My prince, it is such a relief to know that Miss Gu is still alive. I think that she must have been brought back to the lower bound via the vortex as a punishment for her betrayal of the heavenly secret. It all occurred too suddenly, so she could not take the muscle and Luwu along." Baizé's suggestion was very logical. The muscle and Luwu could not think of any better reason to explain her disappearance. Difui did not say anything more. His eyes focused only on her name. Baizé noticed his tired, bloodshot eyes and was worried. "My prince, you should take a rest to regain your strength. If she really is in the lower bound, we will never find her here." Difui finally sat down. He lay against the pillar and closed his eyes. Baizé dared not interrupt him. He was really exhausted, and it was time for him to rest. Recently, the young prince had not been very keen on talking. He remained silent most of the time. No one knew what he was really thinking. Baizé sighed helplessly, for the affection that the prince had for Miss Gu was far more intense than he had expected. It was worried about the prince. The love that they had was not mutual, for there was another man in her heart, a man called Huang Tu. There was no chance that the young prince was the reincarnation of Huang Tu. When he finally advanced to become a mighty immortal, her mission would be accomplished. What should the young prince do when Huang Tu is brought back alive? Personally, Baizé wished that the prince would let go of the relationship as soon as possible before plunging into the abyss of unreturned love. Then the accident happened. Difui was thoroughly exhausted. Since he knew that Gu Shijie was alive, he could no longer pull himself together to stay awake. Baizé knew that it would not be comfortable for him to sleep like this. It thought about transforming into its original form, in order to carry the young prince back onto the bed for a good, long sleep. As soon as it approached him, Difui suddenly opened his eyes widely and stared at it. "Master, you should rest a bit more. I shall carry you home now." Difui took a deep breath before demanding for a ride. However, he did not want to go home. "Take me to the fiery bird, the one capable of traveling to the lower bound." Baizé was surprised by his sudden request. "My prince, are you thinking of going to the lower bound? You must not. The immortals of heaven should never descend to the mortal world. Before the Divine Lord left, he reminded me never to let you leave the celestial devil continent. You cannot leave this place." Difui only answered briefly, "The matter is urgent. You should only answer to my call. Take me there now." If she could come to heaven, there was no way that he could not go down. Baizé could not reject the prince's order. The bird that traveled between heaven and the mortal world could be found in the 7th heaven. Difui found it easily, but his heart sank the moment he saw it. The fiery bird did not survive the catastrophe. It was turned into a rock, standing lifelessly in the distance. You're tuning in to the Limei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.